शैलसुते गिरिवरविन्द्य शिरोदिनि वासिनि विष्णुविलासिनि जिष्णुनुते भगवति हेशिति कण्ठकुटुम्बिनि भूरि कुटुम्बिनि भूरि कृते जय जय हे महिषासुरमर्दिनि रम्यकपर्दिनि शैलसुते सुरवरवर्षिणि दुर्धरदर्शिनि दुर्मुखमर्षिनि हर्षरते त्रिभुवनपोषिणि शङ्करतोषिणि किल्बिषमोषिनि घोषरते धनुजनिरोषिणि दितिश्रुतरोषिनि दुर्मथतोषिनि सिन्धुसुते जय जय हे महिषासुरमर्दिनि रम्यकपर्दिनि शैलसुते जय जय हे महिषासुरमर्दिनि रम्यकपर्दिनि शैलसुते जय जय हे महिषासुरमर्दिनि रम्यकपर्दिनि शैलसुते
Hi guys, I hope the audio is coming fine, etc. Let me know how the audio is coming. I think I need to shift the camera a little to this side. Hello. So it's been a long time since we discussed the Brahma Puran. Oh, Maximus is here. Hey Maximus, let me know if the audio is coming fine. Let me just check from my phone as well. Okay, I have to see ads on my own video. Audio is good. Okay, thanks. Shura Jayasimha, where are you from? Jayasimha, is that supposed to be from southern India? Okay, I had some other topics as well in mind, some current affairs topics, but let me know what mood are you guys in? Okay, do you want to get into directly Brahma Puran and discuss a lot of kshetras, different kinds of temple complexes, okay, as described in Brahma Purana, or should we discuss some current affairs as well? Okay, Bengaluru, nice. So let me know if you want to discuss any current affairs and stuff. Otherwise, we are starting with Brahma Purana only. We are almost halfway through, and it's so fascinating. I basically missed Brahma Purana, and I'm missing very much discussing this history of Indian philosophy as well. Jeet Roy Chaudhary, hello, bhai, hello. It kind of draws you towards it. That it sort of this book was calling to me that hey, you didn't read me for about 2 weeks. How are you? Aren't you missing me? Hey Gidra, Baharampur. Nice. I went to Baharampur when I was last in class 7 or 8, I think. What a great place. I saw the room where Shirajuddaullah's head was chopped off. Modi, and there is one behind me. Haha. Okay, lots of people have joined. So let's start with visiting the Kshetras. So we are going to the voice of Brahma directly here. So this is Rishi Lomaharshana talking about Brahma. So Brahma said, earlier, the king used to rule over that excellent kingdom. The intelligent one protects his subjects like a father protecting his sons. So where is that place, that kingdom? That's probably Avanti, right? Avanti is, I think, in Madhya Pradesh, as far as I remember. Yeah, Avantika. Yeah, it's Madhya Pradesh, as far as I remember. I'm 99% sure. And before that, we had discussed Utkala. What do you think of tech transfer from US to India? Yeah, it's good. Let's see how much we can do it without getting destroyed by USA in the process. See, Japan and all, even China, many years back, these people were all friends with USA, and that's how their economy grew to such an extent. Even South Korea, etc. Such small countries, such gigantic GDPs, huh? But what I fear most about USA is their liberal education system, which we need to get rid of. Whatever liberal arts studies we have, and all those grievance studies, complaining activist disciplines that we have come up with, we need to defund them from government colleges. I'm never going to talk about banning them, but they need to be defunded. We need to defund subjects like sociology, gender studies, women's studies, and even English literature, because these are, first of all, they, you can argue that they take you out, take you away from the Indian ethos, the Bharatiya ethos. More importantly, even if you don't give a crap about Indian ethos, they don't produce high paying jobs. Okay, so I think we should defund these subjects and use that same fund to to help underprivileged kids with STEM departments. And specifically, if they are Hindu, they should get that fund, because unless you close down the Waqf board as well, okay. If we can reach a deal where Waqf board, someone wants to close down the Waqf board, but there is too much grievance about it, then my demand is that, okay, then close down all the grievance studies departments, use that money to fund Hindu poor children for and their entire career, entire education after the first few years. Okay, make sure that they definitely get into STEM, spot the talents, and have them pursue any STEM field they want, and give them the best possible quality education with great infrastructure, labs, etc. But take that money away from sociology and English literature. And more importantly, see, BlackRock, that hedge fund, right? That BlackRock has more money than the entire GDP of India. Our GDP is $3.72 trillion. BlackRock's assets under management is $8.79 trillion. And BlackRock is the one of the most infamous companies who are pushing the woke agenda in companies, who are pushing the DEI, ESG, CSR, all of those stuff. A lot of people are fans of the CSR concept as well, but I am not. But that's BlackRock doing it. BlackRock is destroying all these companies. They are destroying capitalism. They are destroying the big companies, pushing the woke agenda, and asking people to hire black, Muslim, transgender, handicapped people, no matter how bad they are at their job. But you have to fill these quotas. But they are not saying those same things in China, because they want to open up a central bank. They want to open up index funds in China. So these are the problems I have, the concerns I have in our friendship with USA. But it's great that that most of the country either hates USA or is intelligently skeptical about USA. That's a beautiful thing. I think that's the part that Japan, China, see, you have to notice what Hollywood does. Okay, Hollywood has, I think, you can call it a conspiracy theory, obviously, but I think Hollywood is a precursor of everything that you can expect from American society a few years down the line. Every time Hollywood starts showing one particular country as great friends, you know that, okay, now in American foreign policy is friendly towards this country. And then you see at the same time that the GDP of that so-called friend country is also going up, along with the people from those countries being shown in good light. Okay, so CIA, FBI, more importantly CIA or the businesses, they definitely deliberately ask Hollywood to push certain agendas and push certain countries in the forefront, so that the general population of the entire country get the vibe that these are our friends. Okay, so biggest example is obviously the Jackie Chan movies, Bruce Lee movies, Japanese, different ways of friendships with Japan had been pursued, appreciating their culture, etc. Samurai Cartoon Network में animation हो गया, Samurai Jack. During those years, Japan was at its greatest heights, and then their economy got screwed up, and now what their GDP is much lower than what their peak GDP was, and I don't think they are getting back to their peak GDP anytime soon. And every day is the highest GDP we have ever been in. So now they are trying to show India in great light. They are appreciating RRR. They have Priyanka Chopra, who they are using to push their anti-India agendas as well. Priyanka Chopra has always spoken out against India and against Hindus. Okay, now she even says that how much discrimination she had to face, and she also says that how much discrimination she faced in USA, because now she has to come off as the victim who has faced the brunt of racism. But she never ever said these things when before these things became cool in USA. Okay, being the victim was not always cool in USA. Not before the last hardly 2015 2014. Okay, before that I specifically distinctly remember what Priyanka Chopra said, that she had faced racism from her black and Hispanic classmates. Now she goes around saying that sentence, that I also faced racial discrimination, but she absolutely ignores the part where she had mentioned that she faced discrimination from black and Hispanic people. And I don't think you can even find those articles. So I'll basically come across as a liar for claiming that she had faced discrimination from black and Hispanic students. But she did. I remember that article. You can't even find that anywhere on the internet. Okay, that has been wiped out. People wipe out articles all the time. You remember that New York Times had posted that famous graph of all the biggest genocides that have happened. Okay, so there they had mentioned that Aurangzeb has done about 7.2, killed about what 7.2 million people or something like that. And then that became famous. A lot of people in India started putting out that graph, putting out that pie chart of biggest genocides in the world, and showing that, see, even your liberal newspaper, New York Times, is saying this. It's not just Hindutvadis who are saying this. And now you can't find it anywhere. I'd be surprised if you can find it. Okay, so just check if you can find it. I have searched it just about 2-3 months back, and I could not find it anywhere. New York Times had posted this. Thank God I have a screenshot of that post, that Aurangzeb killed 7.2 million people. Also, talk about Titanic tragedy, bro. What do you think about it? Uh, see, let's get to the conspiracy theory, possible conspiracy theory side of it, and the non-conspiracy theory, both angles. Conspiracy theory का side तो ये है कि ये this must have been done by done to distract people from American politics, etc. I don't know enough arguments on the conspiracy theory side to understand this detail, but that's one theory. But other than that, that's how exploration happens. Rich people collaborate with the innovators and engineers, and then they set out on very brave journeys, and then they get killed. And that is how people learn from their mistakes and make a better product. This is capitalism at its best. And it's very dark and very sad that these people died, same class of people died in the same way near the same Titanic all these years later, huh? $250,000 per person those tickets cost. And see, even the founder CEO himself died. That's a sacrifice, and everyone knew it's full of risks. All of them who were in that submersible submarine or tank, what they're calling it, submersible only I think they're calling it. But all of them knew it's risky as hell. And even that Daud guy, that father and son who went, that son is 17 or 18 years old, and they were even that guy, that young kid, even didn't even want to go there. He just went there with just because his father said so. So it's sad, but maybe because of this we will have better submersible technologies in the future, and this will help people to learn what went wrong in this particular gadget, so that we can explore further in the depths of the ocean. Because innovation to karna hi hai, and somehow someone has to take the risks, someone has to become the guinea pigs, and these people were the guinea pigs. Yes, $250,000. Let's name it Titanic. Nothing could go wrong. Yeah. Abhay Agarwal is saying, yeah, he said that Hindus do not have the will to fight against gender fluidity, only Muslims have it, of course, in context of communism versus Islam. And I'm still waiting for to hear one good thing from his mouth about Indian economy. Kiska baat ho raha hai? Let me just check, okay? Let me check the comment sections. Has anyone been watching AIM praising Islam lately? Oh, yeah. AIM is being sarcastic, no? He has been sarcastic, and he has been saying that, yeah, देखो, ये जो हिंदुओं के साथ जो करते हो, ये मुस्लिम्स के साथ नहीं कर पाओगे. And that is true. What can we say? It's basically a fact that Muslims are fighting this on the ground in the streets of USA, even though their population is hilariously low. I think it's 1% or 2% maximum, right? So Indians are much more in population. They are not doing anything about it. They are funding these things. Their kids are doing these same things. Vivek Ramaswamy is saying that he grew up as a second generation immigrant. Now his cousins who are young kids, they are saying that they are persons of color, and they are victims. So Vivek Ramaswamy is absolutely shocked by these things. I don't think he's right though. Why isn't he right? Because Islam is pushing back on those things. No, Muslims are pushing back, and even that's the thing with Andrew Tate as well. And most people, Hindus, hate Andrew Tate for what he said about Indian kings being weak, and Hindus being weak. Hindu kings not ever fucking anyone up. Sikhs not having done that in a long time. That's his exact quote, right? But you have to remember that that's exactly what all English medium educated people in India believe as well. That's what we have been taught. That's what I believed until 2021. So how do you think Andrew Tate is going to know any different? We have to write our new books. We have to push this, counter these things in comment sections, in YouTube videos all the time, and that's how the next generation of androtates will know that no, we had all great, valiant kings, etc. But that's not something androtate knew of when he grew up. Most Indians don't know these stuff. You ask anyone, you do a rapid fire with them, tell any Indian kid, anyone below 40, below 30, any of your millennial friends, tell them just name five Muslim kings. They will say it immediately. Okay, they'll name the entire Mughal family. Then immediately tell them name five Hindu kings. They will stammer the fuck out of their brains. At best, they will probably come up with Maharana Pratap, Shivaji, oh Chandragupta. Yeah, that's how they will answer it. So whose fault is it? Okay, let me have a sip of coffee. Okay, since we have entered the enter, but why is AIM so hopeless about Indian economy? That I don't understand. I think he's being extra critical of the Indian economy because he thinks that will shake up the conversation. He's being a agent provocateur, so to speak. Okay, he thinks if he unless he pushes the criticism of the economy very far to the right, these people won't wake up from their socialist freebie slumber. That is what I think, because that's the same thing what Subramaniam Swamy is saying, right? Subramaniam Swamy even a few days back made a post in Twitter saying that real GDP growth of India is actually 4%, and rest of it is just the bouncing back from Corona. Okay, that's his argument, and he said that I'll make all the details public and stuff. So these are far right guys on economics. I don't have a problem with that. I do have one big problem with Subramaniam Swamy, disagreement with Subramaniam Swamy on the economics issue. But other than that, as far as our economy can go to the right, as for now, it's always better. It's too much of freebies so far. We need to decrease that as well. But I think these people are just provoking and shocking the conversation so that people wake up and criticize harder. Okay, but one major just that one disagreement I have with Subramaniam Swamy is that he and a Marxist economist like Abhijit Banerjee, the Nobel laureate, they agree on one thing, and I absolutely think that would have been wrong. And in hindsight, we now know that they would have been definitely wrong, which is they said, both of them, a free market hardliner like Subramaniam Swamy and a Marxist developmental economist guy like Abhijit Banerjee, both of them said that when the corona pandemic happened, India should have printed more money to fight inflation or to give to the poor. In the same way that USA did those stimulus packages, they should have just printed money and given those money to people depending on how many dependents they have, etc., or whatever their background. To some extent, make it as progressive as and reasonable as possible. Okay, but what the Indian government said, Sanjeev Sanyal, Vivek Debroy, finance minister, what they argued is that no, we are not going to give away just printed free money to people. We are going to give you the service. What that does not create the inflation that USA faced. Why is our economy probably in the best condition in the entire world today, at least in terms of inflation? Okay, we have probably the least inflation in terms of any emerging serious big economy. Developed countries to chhodi do. Every developed country today every first world country today has more inflation than India. Our inflation varies between 6 to 7%. It has been varying in between that for the last 3 years, ever since Corona. And USA's inflation hit 10%. यूरोप का तो छोड़ ही दो, उनका इन्फ्लेशन बहुत ही ज्यादा हो गया है. Turkey, Argentina, 53% inflation, 106% inflation. All these countries have gone to the dogs because of inflation and because of printing so much money. The entire world is facing extra unnecessary inflation because of USA printing extra money. And Dr. Subramaniam Swamy and Abhijit Banerjee had recommended exactly that. So I don't know how that works, and therefore I have questions about how much Subramaniam Swamy might be right about these things. And okay, let's check some comments. Yes, he's an alarmist basically. Yes, he uses alarms to shake up the system to expedite reform. True. I think AIM's end of Hinduism talk was also to provocate. Yeah, but someone needs to say these things. We need people to provoke. We need people to complain. We need people to have sane minds. We need skeptics. We need all sorts of people on the Hindu fold, right? We can't be just one kind of people, otherwise we will be as dumb fucks like Pakistan. Please read last two comments, they are related. Okay, Maximus. Maximus is saying, same way how Americans don't know that General Electronics and Ford engines were used for Nazi Germany vehicles and tanks. Yes. Also, General Electronics provided the fuel additive because of which the Luftwaffe planes could fly. Yeah. And do you know what the insane thing that BlackRock is about to do now? They and JP Morgan Chase, the other big hedge fund, they are opening up a separate bank altogether in Ukraine. Do you know of this? Let's see if I can cast the news about this. They are opening up an entire bank just to help people help build back Ukraine. Okay, they are going to invest in Ukraine infrastructure. People are going to invest in Ukraine's infrastructure, and as a result, people are going to get back some return out of that. Okay, let me just post that news here, cast that news here. Yeah, I saved this up all in my discussion list, and some of them became backdated because the news cycle is so fast. Yeah, check this out. And it's so much easier to do with StreamYard. It's absolutely beautiful. अरे ये कैसा screen हो गया? Okay. Yeah. So check this out, guys. BlackRock and JP Morgan will help Ukraine launch a recovery bank to raise hundreds of billions of reconstruction money. इससे तो थोड़ा पैसा interest कौन खाएगा? BlackRock खाएगा, जिसका asset under management already है $9 trillion. The leading American investment companies, BlackRock and JP Morgan Chase, will help Ukraine to for the create the fund for the development of Ukraine, an investment bank for economic recovery after the war. So, see, why does BlackRock have such a strong voice? It is because they are not creating a product, they are not selling you a service. They are just saying that if you don't do this, I'm taking away all my funding of your company. And it's the people who hate wokeism, which is the old white people, majorly Republicans, conservatives. It's all of their money getting into BlackRock's hedge fund and index fund, because the financial advisors of these people, they are who are handling people's monthly SIP investments or their retirement accounts, 401k bolte hain jo USA mein, all of that is going to BlackRock and even JP Morgan Chase, but BlackRock is the biggest culprit here. So people who hate BlackRock or wokeism or ESG, DEI, their money is being funded to use is being used and being funded to pursue exactly those things. So that's pretty hilarious. Nino is saying it was required to provoke by AIM because there is a genuine threat of eradication of Hinduism. Yeah, fair enough. And he did come up with some good arguments. No, and he's a respectable person, so he knows we will listen and act on it. Yeah. It was absolutely good, and we need skeptics as well, and we need sane heads, everyone, and we need people to hesitate. I like this quote by Sir Roger Scruton. He said this in a discussion with Douglas Murray in one open auditorium kind of a discussion platform. He said that, see, what is the problem with conservatives and which is the one of the main problems we have in terms of attracting young people to the conservative movement as opposed to leftists, which is when leftists hold out a public rally, a political procession, or a march, they will have great slogans like march forward, okay, progress, we are going somewhere better. But the conservative has to say, what is their slogan going to be? What? Hesitate. Kya slogan kya rakhe? Because conservatives are just going to conserve what is already great about the society, and which is why in India's context we are actually the progressives, right? Because who are our conservatives? Our conservatives in India, in the political realm, are the Congress supporters, communism supporters, Trinamool supporters, right? Because they are saying that this is not the India I grew up in. I want India to remain what it was. India जैसे पहले था वैसे अच्छा ही था. तुम लोग और भी बिगाड़ रहे हो. So they are the conservatives, we are the progressives in this case. Okay, Nina is saying that video you did on Rabindranath's views on Muslims literally wanted to express same thing as AIM. Yeah, absolutely. That we Hindus have been fools so far. Yeah. Rabindranath was hugely critical. उन्होंने जो सब बोला है, Rabindranath said that, wrote to that mother saying that you are going on you people, all of you. Now he writes to that Bengali mother, but addresses all Bengali or Hindu mothers in general, that you are all bringing up all pussy Hindu kids, and they are going to be weak as fuck, and then they are going to get killed by Muslims. That was the basic essence of his letter. And other than that, he said that all ये संप्रदाय सेक्ट फेक्ट सब गोली मारो, सिर्फ यूनाइटेड बनो. डाइवर्सिटी, हिंदुइज्म का डाइवर्सिटी गया गड्ढे में, तुम अभी पहले हिंदुइज्म को बचाओ, हिंदुओं को बचाओ. He was very harsh. Do you disagree with AIM on anything? On many things I disagree, but abhi on the top of my head, I can't remember, except Netaji issue, obviously. And decoloniality, he somehow hates decoloniality. He thinks decoloniality is the same as the Communist Manifesto. I don't know how he has read Communist Manifesto or decoloniality and come up with that conclusion. But his view on Netaji is that Netaji was a very evil person and a very vile man, and he would have been the equivalent of Hitler in India, and especially because he oversaw the torture and brutalities done against the Indian soldiers of the British Army at the hands of the Japanese Imperial Army. So, even if that is 100% true, I obviously can't just randomly claim that Netaji was a bad person for oversawing that, because we don't know if Netaji really said that, oh अच्छा अच्छा इंडियन है, ब्रिटिश के लिए लड़ रहे हैं, टॉर्चर कर दो सालों को, हमको क्या है. That is Abhijit Mitra's notion of Netaji, and I don't know how he has come up with this conclusion. I don't think that was the case. I genuinely think Netaji must have said that, no, don't do this, and then Japan must have said that, नहीं, तुम हमको मत सिखाओ, तुम्हारा काम है ब्रिटिश से लड़ना, हम लड़ रहे हैं तुम्हारे साथ, अब ब्रिटिश आर्मी के इंडियंस के साथ क्या हम करेंगे वो हमारा बात है, don't teach us. Yeah, the African one, right? Okay. Okay, so let's get into, since we are discussing foreign policy and geopolitics anyway, so let's get into some of the other topics I wanted to discuss. Okay, so Modi's speech in the US Congress, that I have to argue is the best speech Narendra Modi has ever given in his life. Okay, because of the things he touched upon, phenomenal things. Those are the things we discuss on our Indian podcasts and Indian Reddits, Sham Sharma Show's Reddit, and we want people like Jay Sai Deepak to go around saying these things. A lot of some of those things, some of those fascinating things, those very important things, which are not even known by most Indian people, those things were brought up by Narendra Modi in the address, in the State of the Union address. Okay, that is insanely important. I have noted them down. Okay, some of the insanely awesome things that he said, and I was watching live, and at one point when he talked about Vedas, I just screamed at the top of my lungs. I was like, it was like I was cheering for some cricket team. I was that happy. And that is what a leader is, guys. Your prime minister, when was the last time this happened, right? If you at all even knew where your prime minister was, be it in USA or Fiji, you had to be an ardent follower of politics. Even if you were an ardent follower of politics, you would only be a skeptic, and you would think that, okay, he has said something great, or he has not said anything great, he will just देश का तो कुछ होने वाला नहीं है. That sort of skeptic mindset. But when was the last time anyone in their 30s, early 30s, listened to their prime minister at home and suddenly cheered at one particular sentence? It's not like I'm a huge Modi fan or I'm a BJP karyakarta and I'm cheering at everything that Modi is saying. I was casually listening to him. Then, acha bol raha. And then suddenly he says that thing, and I absolutely scream like I'm in a sports stadium. Can you play that speech? No, बहुत copyright का case हो रहा है. Modi carefully dodged the policies he made for Muslims, else Hindus will question him. Yeah, he's absolutely on election mode. I can see that. I have made some points about what the specifically fascinating things that Modi talked about. Okay, so he said, which is probably the most important thing he said in that speech. He said, 1,000 years of foreign rule in one way or the other, that is not the general consensus. हमारा foreign rule शुरू होता है 1757 में, according to the academics, according to general kids who just learn history in school. We know of foreign invasions only in 1757, right? Battle of Plassey. He says 1,000 years का foreign rule था. वो फॉरेन रूल किसने किया है? That is hugely significant. This is the first time an Indian prime minister or an Indian mainstream politician is acknowledging that the Islamic invaders were foreign rulers and their descendants are therefore settler colonialists or settler colonizers. जो जोधा अकबर में वो जो लाइन है, where Ritik says that हम तो बाकी इन्वेडर्स के तरह नहीं है, हमने तो यहाँ सिर्फ लूटपाट करने के लिए नहीं आए, हम तो यहाँ रह गए. Dumbass Ashutosh Gawardekar doesn't understand that's the literal definition of settler colonialism. There are different kinds of colonialism. There is exploitation colonialism, where you take the resources and leave. And then there is settler colonialism, and there is colonialism of the mind, which is coloniality. तो हमारे Muslims है settler colonialists, except especially the Ashraf class, and that has never been acknowledged by any mainstream academic, never been spoken by any post-colonialism studies academic, nor any sociologist, which is why sociology needs to be defunded. These people fall in the exact category of settler colonialism, and more so, even if their argument is that तो क्या हुआ, after all तो है बेचारे minority, बेचारे 49% में है, or I am joking, it's about 30%, right? But even then, first of all, we need to argue that majority has never been the oppressor. Even if we say that Brahmins were going around killing all Shudras and torturing all Shudras, when were Brahmins the majority? When were British in the entire country of India, Pakistan, Afghanistan, Bangladesh, when were British people, white-skinned British people, the majority? Majority से oppression नहीं होता है, power structure से oppression होता है, ठीक है? But even if we concede that okay, sociologists are dumb, they must have thought that Muslims are in the minority, therefore they are not settler colonizers. But what about Pakistan, Afghanistan, Bangladesh? Places which were inherently Hindu or at least non-Muslim before the onset of Muslim invaders. वहां पे अगर वो देश मुस्लिम मेजोरिटी हो जाए and वहां के अशराफ ब्लड लाइन चलते रहे and they are in the structures of power, if that is not settler colonialism, what is? And that is what Narendra Modi said. 1,000 years of foreign rule. This made me insanely happy. He displayed Hindutva subtlety in his words. Yes. Where is your interview with Indic Explorer? Yeah, I don't know what happened. I think, see, I have a few theories on this. I have not asked him, obviously, कि क्या हुआ मेरा interview का. That would come across as too desperate, so I didn't say. But at the end of the interview, he said that, okay, it became a little too political. I wanted to keep it more cultural because he also works in a place where he has to toe the line, if you know what I mean. He works in a woke environment. So I understand that, obviously, because I'm never harshly critical of Trinamool or Muslims because I live in Bengal. So he said that we might have to reshoot it. And when he said that we might have to reshoot it, when Vineet said that, then we did some more 3 or 4 questions. So I thought maybe this is going to get edited out, and the next 3-4 questions will get inserted in that. But after that, nothing has been released. So I think he has scrapped the entire interview, which is fair enough. It's his channel. He has to remain safe. But I guess so his conclusion might be that I said some things which were overtly too controversial and too political, which he does not want for the vision of his channel. So fair enough. Okay, the next, let me check some comments. He was brilliant on his part, and do know remember that he said 1,000-year fun rule. Yeah, that's what I just said. Nice. It was the best speech, bro. Yes, I really enjoyed it. Yes. Did he talk about decolonization? No, not this time. Okay, let me tell you guys, for those who haven't checked it yet, what are the next fascinating thing he said. Okay, next interesting thing that happened in that speech is that when he said that India is a land of diversity, etc., when he was selling our diversity, which is a common talking point, but most people don't mean it when they say it, or don't say it when they're out of power. But a Sikh guy was the first to stand up and clap in the American Parliament. Okay, the Congress. So one Sikh guy stood up and started clapping the hardest when he said that India is a great diverse country and we are all happily going on with each other. Okay, then he quotes Vedas and says that we have these ancient scriptures called the Vedas, and there are so many fascinating things written, and then he quotes them. I love that. How many people have heard about Vedas? How many people have heard about Vedas being so old? How many people even know that Hinduism is so old? How many people in the world or USA even know that we have such ancient scriptures which still survive today? How many in USA or how many even in fucking India know that we have Vedas, which are today even quoted while doing yagyas and all puja parts, and they are thousands and thousands of years old. Most people don't know it, at least not Bengalis. I have asked a lot of my Bengali friends, and when I bought my Bengali Rig Veda, a lot of people said that, oh, Rig Veda, yeah, I've heard of it. There are 4 Vedas or 3 Vedas, right? They can't remember how many Vedas are there. And what is inside that? I've heard so much about it. I said that yeah, अरे पूजा का यज्ञ, ज्ञानाग्नि, अग्निदेव के यज्ञ में जो बोलते हैं वो सब है. And they said, you won't believe this sentence, what some of my friends have said. They said that, what, do those purohits actually say something, chant out something? I thought they just take some money and chant out random gibberish words and leave. That's the opinion of purohits we have in our society, at least in Bengal, because of our great sociologist, Marxist sociologists, whom we keep funding. And I think their funding needs to be stopped immediately. But so most Indians even don't know that we have Rig Veda in our day-to-day culture. Even when we are celebrating pujas, or just for even if for taking selfies, there is a puja going on, reading out from a text which is 6 to 7 thousand years old. So our prime minister quoting those scriptures inside that parliament is very significant and very awesome. Are Dada, you remember what I said about the fifth Veda? Fifth Veda is, I guess, Ayurveda, no? They don't even know yoga comes from Vedas and Hinduism. Yes, that's what. As Kushal says, leftist diversity is skin deep while Hindutva diversity is soul deep. Yes. Yeah, where is Indic Explorer interview? Okay. Next point I had mentioned is that, yes, the next sixer he hits. First he mentions Vedas, then quotes Vedas, then talks about Brahmavadinis. He says that so many thousands of years back, we had female rishis who who contributed to the collection of Vedas. How many know that? How many in India know that? Not, most people don't know that. Most academics don't know that, right? All the while they are talking about Brahmanical patriarchy, how Hinduism is patriarchal, how Vedic civilization is patriarchal, but they have never heard of people like women like uh, Lopamudra, Gargai, Maitreyi. They are female rishis who have composed some of the verses in the Vedas. And Narendra Modi said that in the US Parliament. That needs to be appreciated as much as possible. Okay, then one sentence he said, which is an absolutely brilliant job. Whoever wrote his speech, they need to be worshipped. He said a sentence that we build capabilities, not dependencies. एक साथ में यूएसए और चाइना दोनों को सरकास्टिकली बोल दिया यूएसए के पार्लियामेंट में बैठ के कि when you guys help other people, you all create dependencies. When we help other people with vaccines or rescue missions during Turkey, etc., we create capabilities. What a great line, huh? We build capabilities, not dependencies. There is no official fifth Veda, just a concept to express greatness of some books. Yes, Ayurveda. Yeah, I know that. I think they are from my birthplace, Natya Veda. I see. Ninar, how you were right. Officially, it's not recognized. Then again, the Maharshis claim the existence of the Natya Veda. I see. Ninar is saying academics mostly learn European and American people's histories because to them, the Indian history before Ramon Roy was all dark ages. Yes. Okay. Another interesting thing he said in that address is that terrorism takes new shapes every day, and we must fight all of them. This was needed, guys. That terrorism is very much still the problem. It's not like Indian liberals and American liberals think that the biggest problem we have today in society is patriarchy or capitalism, right? And again, you have to go to notice all the Hollywood scripts that in the last few years, what has Hollywood shown? There is no significant evil, bad country, etc. Only evil is patriarchy. Only evil is capitalism. And especially if it's a female hero, female heroine, okay. If it's a female lead, tab to ho gaya. Tab खराब आदमी छोड़ो. तो each and every step is her victory against patriarchy. There's no woman fighting against a bad country or a bad thing or an evil concept in society. It's all about patriarchy. So it's good that Narendra Modi reminded people that no, terrorism is still the biggest problem. I love that. And do you think BJP will ever come to power in West Bengal? Not this time, but maybe after that. But the problem is not सी बीजेपी पावर में आने से मैजिकली कुछ अच्छा नहीं हो जाएगा. बीजेपी will come to power, they will have to come to power with the help of Muslims and with the help of the political gunda class which we now have, which is the main problem. That when the factories started closing down in Bengal, when deindustrialization was started by Nehru, then carried forward and put on steroids by Jyoti Basu, we got a critical mass of a huge section of Bengali population who were ready to become just political gundas, which is there in all Indian states, but which is extremely strong and which is extremely high in number in places like UP, Bihar, and West Bengal. Mainly, these three are the major culprits in this. Now, so when BJP comes to power, what will they do? Will they quit their job as a political gunda, or do they have a job and they are taking a holiday to go and beat some people up from the opposing party? No. So they will keep being political gunda. They will have to die. They will have to grow old. Then their kids will have to not go into becoming a political gunda, because by then, if BJP really comes to power, and hopefully they will have built some good employment opportunities. Otherwise, we will keep having a political gunda section. So the problem is that if BJP comes to power, they will have to come to power with that same gigantic number of section of Bengali political gundas, okay, who change parties. सीपीएम के जो पॉलिटिकल गुंडास थे वो तृणमूल में चले गए. नाउ द तृणमूल पॉलिटिकल गुंडा क्लास विल हैव टू कम टू बीजेपी. So it will take 20-25 years at least. It will take at least one generation of BJP staying in power to change Bengal. Shyam is saying BJP is not helping their Karyakartas in Bengal. Yeah, Amit Shah acknowledged 300 BJP workers were killed but didn't do anything. Yes, they can't do anything legally. That is the problem. Whatever they try to do legally, they will Chief Justice of India will throw that proposal out, and they will say that they are hampering the states, they are meddling in states affairs, etc. Illegal immigrants form a majority of Muslims in Bengal. Yeah, probably. I think he was hinting at LJ. Who is LJ? Ninod is saying they'll need an encounter policy in West Bengal to cure it. Probably they pretty much cured UP in 7-8 years that way. Yeah, that is how UP is doing it, and I have no hope that will happen in West Bengal, because that will see UP has one advantage. No, but they are Hindutvadis at heart. After all, Bengalis are not even Hindutvadis at heart. Even our devout Hindus are all thieves and mafias of Trinamool. They do all sorts of pujas, donate hugely to local temples, but they don't think that Hinduism is at all under threat. So if so-called Hindutvadi party comes to power and then they start doing shootouts of criminals, most of whom will turn out to be Muslims, tab to ho gaya satyanash. The ship is going to turn immediately. Not encounter policy, burn at the stake policy. No. Then BJP will go out of power in 5 years. Okay. Terrorism takes new shapes every day, and we must fight all of that all the time. Yeah, and another thing I wanted to discuss in this context is that that woman from Disney got fired. Okay, she was the head of diversity affairs or something. Her name was, wait, what's her name? Let me just check. Oh yeah, Latondra Newton, fired from Disney. Okay, she's a woke nut job, absolutely. So let me show you her news. Latondra Newton fired. ब्रह्म पुराण भी डिस्कस करेंगे. Check this out. नहीं, एड्स देखना पड़ेगा. So yeah, this is the woman. She is the chief diversity officer at Disney, okay, who made Disney lose about $1 billion in the last 2-3 years. So, and which, as a result of which, Disney had to fire countless people all over the world. So many even Indians lost their jobs because of this woman, because she kept pushing diversity and bullshit woke policies in movies which no one cares about. See, all the movies, even today, Extraction is such a big hit, Extraction 2 is such a big hit. We have never had a problem with accessibility, right? They think that the character has to represent them personally. So if you are a dark skinned guy who lives in a village in Bengal, there has to be a character of a dark skinned guy Bengali living in a fucking village. Otherwise you can't connect with that character, apparently. That is how bad their history writing skills, history reading skills, and script writing skills are. Which is that their script writing is so bad that they think that only when the character is of the same profession or same skin color, same background, only then people will relate to it, which is not the case. That is not how art works. Art works because you connect with the with a person's emotions or actions, even when that person does not look like you or come from your background. Tell me honestly, have you ever felt not connected with Will Smith's character in Pursuit of Happiness, or Dwayne Johnson, or Arnold Schwarzenegger, or Sylvester Stallone, Denzel Washington, Bruce Lee, Jackie Chan? इन सबको हमने इंडियंस ने और अमेरिकन्स ने भी कैसे एक्सेप्ट कर लिया, हमने कैसे इन कैरेक्टर्स के साथ रिलेट किया, ये सब कैरेक्टर्स हमारे पास एक्सेसिबल कैसे थे? तो भोसरी वालों को अब क्यों एक्सेसिबल करने के लिए एक लंगड़ा ब्लैक इंडियन ऐसे कैरेक्टर्स ही दिखाने होंगे, नहीं तो ये एक्सेसिबल नहीं होगा। तो ये जो चुतियापा आइडिया है, ये सब लाए थे ये क्या लॉटनरा, ये दिस वुमन, शी वाज बिहाइंड द डिज्नी मूवीज डूइंग ऑल दिस क्रैप, which is absolutely idiotic. We don't need such things. And let's face it, that even now, when all these woke movies are failing, that's mainly because their script and story is extremely bad. Even if they actually had written good stories where there were actually strong female characters, we would still have fun watching them. Remember Emily Blunt's character in that Edge of Tomorrow, etc., right? They are such recent movies. Even then they had such great strong female characters. And now some Hollywood actresses are coming out and saying that every time someone says that and gives us a script saying that your character is a strong female character, I immediately start to puke and think that no, it's absolutely useless, and they must have written some bad story and bad script, which is why they had to mention that it's a strong female character. Otherwise a strong female character just comes out, it pops out of the story, right? Which reminds me, okay, Shura Jaisima is saying interesting name though for a district. Maximus Prime. Difference between skin deep versus soul deep diversity. Yes. Nino is saying I'm in the West too, and there is an anti-racism officer post in my university. You can guess how useful it is. Yeah. I identify as King of Wales. We can't relate with anyone. Right. We can't relate with anyone. Accessible banane. Abhay Agrawal is saying, what skills do these people require for the job? I will apply for it. You have to be a pass out of gender studies, obviously, or race relations studies. Then you get to be an expert on these things. But see, Designated Survivor. Put up your hands if you all have seen the Netflix series called Designated Survivor. Okay, I'm a pretty big fan of that series. I started watching that series when I had a big accident. So it started in 2017. I think it ended in 2019. So the fun part about Designated Survivor is that the first two seasons were absolutely mind-boggling. It was actually balanced because the character, the president, the Kiefer Sutherland is playing the American president. He's officially from he's a registered independent, so he's not a Democrat, not a Republican. So, but you understand that he's kind of a liberal independent. He's not a right wing independent. तो उतना Hollywood से expect हम नहीं कर सकते हैं. And the villain always turns out to be a white supremacist. So those woke things were there even in the first season, but it was very balanced because a liberal centrist might have actually had those positions. But in the third season, what happened is that they must have gotten or hired some diversity officer bullshit, okay? And immediately in that one season, every woke policy that they could have come up with, they crammed it in the third season. Transgenderism, gay couple, two men having sex, assisted suicide, जो दिमाग में आया सब घुसा दिया third season में. But my point is, even then, Designated Survivor is a very watchable series. And most of all, I rewatched it again a few days back. Now, since I know a little more about world politics, etc., what I realized is that I have heard rumors that FBI, CIA, these people fund some cinema and web series also. Designated Survivor, if you all follow a little bit of international politics, you will see that Designated Survivor seems to be very much funded by CIA or FBI or both. It is the most pro FBI, pro big government, pro deep state series or movie you will ever see in your life. They will show every law-breaking criminal thing done by FBI or that things that FBI gets accused of, and then they show it in a way that you feel like, yeah, it to thoda bahut to justified hai, ab kya kare. But it's very well written. It's very crisp. It's very, very high-paced. Great background music. Great camera angles. वो प्रोडक्शन क्रिएटिविटी में कोई कमी नहीं छोड़ा है, which is what Disney and all are not getting. They are not understanding this. They are making crap products, which is what actually Indian right wingers do most of the time. They make crap movies and then they expect that since we are Hindus, we'll support any random bullshit movie. That is what modern Hollywood is doing, but Designated Survivor did not do that. But ये जो FBI funding है, and Designated Survivor predicts a lot of things that have come true. Okay, they predicted a pandemic. They predicted a weak president who is being supported by a lot of his staff. If you see the series, you'll know that it was very much true in its correct in its predictions. You need to be member of oppressed race. हाँ वो भी है. No, not member of any oppressed race. Member of only black and native Americans, क्योंकि उनके अलावा किसी के साथ कुछ बुरा नहीं हुआ है मनुष्य के इतिहास में. हर्ष झा सिंह, दादा ये सब भी देखते हो क्या आप? वैसे कभी इंडियंस को रिप्रेजेंटेशन दिया क्या? If they did, how did they portray Indians? You have seen Quantico, right? प्रियंका चोपड़ाज. तो वहां पे इंडियन डिसेंडेंट लड़की है, इंडियन एनआरआई वंश की लड़की है. हमारे डेजिग्नेटेड सर्वाइवर में कैल्पेन है, हु इज ऑफ इंडियन डिसेंट. बट ऑल दीज पीपल हैव डेफिनेटली क्रिश्चियन नेम्स. ओके, थोड़ा बहुत डॉक्टर पटेल या हुआ घुसा देंगे, बट मोस्टली इफ इट्स अ लीड कैरेक्टर इट्स ऑलवेज क्रिश्चियन फॉर नाउ. बट प्रियंका चोपड़ा का जो नाम है वहां पे एलेक्स. तो ये लड़कों का नाम लड़कियों को देना इज ऑलरेडी पिसेस मी ऑफ अ लिटिल मोर. इट्स वेरी इरिटेटिंग. जोई किंग, एलेक्स इज शॉर्ट फॉर एलेक्सा ऑब्वियसली, बट इट्स एलेक्सा और एलेक्स बोलने में कितना टाइम डिफरेंट लगता है, आई डोंट नो. Alex seems like a short for Alexander, etc. Alex is definitely more common as a man's name. But anyway, प्रियंका चोपड़ा वहां पे एक हिंदू हिंदू टेररिस्ट को ही पकड़ती है, हु वाज पोजिंग एज अ मुस्लिम टेररिस्ट. ओके, सो वो रहेगा ही. एट द एंड ऑफ द डे you can't show anyone in bad light except Hindus and white people. वो रहेगा ही. घूम फिर के व्हाइट सुप्रीमेसिस्ट विलन बनेगा, नहीं तो घूम फिर के प्रियंका चोपड़ा ने तो दिखा दिया कि अब अच्छा व्हाइट एक हिंदू ही टेररिस्ट था, मुस्लिम खेल के घूम रहा था. आई डोंट वॉच हॉलीवुड एक्सेप्ट मार्वल, दैट टू ओनली डॉक्टर स्ट्रेंज. एमवीएम आफ्टर दैट लॉस्ट इंटरेस्ट. Oh my god, I don't know how he managed till Doctor Strange. I could not watch anything after Avengers 4. कहा करे भैया. Yes, Ami Godib, Netflix 9. I haven't watched the Netflix in a long time. Okay. Yeah, you like Designated Survivor. Okay, let's see what other things I had noted down for my geopolitics discussion. Okay, so this news is now a little old because I should have did a live stream day before yesterday when I actually wrote these things down. So you all know that Pentagon by mistake gave $6.2 billion dollars to Ukraine, right? So let me show you that news first, and after that so-called coup happened, and now we know that it wasn't even a real coup. वो नेटो वेटो ने पैसा ऑफर किया होगा और पुतिन ने उसको बोला हाँ कि हाँ पैसा रख लो, फिर हमारा दोस्ती भी चलता रहेगा. वो मोदी ने क्या कहा था, वो रिश्तेदारी बने रहे, वो भी हुआ. तो वैगनर ग्रुप ने इसमें से पैसा भी खा लिया, मगर पुतिन को हटाया भी नहीं. So that was the fun part. So check this out. But I want to show you this because there is something else to show along with this as well. Wait. So पेंटागन ने एक अकाउंटिंग के गलती के वजह से ऐसे गलती में $6.2 बिलियन यूक्रेन को दे दिया. ठीक है, तो ये पैसा यूक्रेन के पास गया गलती से, on top of the already sent, legally sent without any mistake, the $1 or $2 billion that they have already sent. Okay, on top of that गलती से $6.2 billion भेज दिया. Now let me show you what else has Pentagon been missing. So check this out. Pentagon missing billions in military equipment. ये कुछ दिन पहले का न्यूज है, ये लेटेस्ट न्यूज नहीं है. दिस इज फ्रॉम जनवरी. ओके, पेंटागन ने अपने कुछ वेपन्स खो दिए हैं, उनको मिल नहीं रहा है. अरे कहाँ रखा यार 15. ऐसा चल रहा है पेंटागन के अंदर. डिफेंस स्पेंडिंग इज वाइटल टू एंश्योर. अच्छा, अरे कितना ऐड देखेंगे. लेट्स सी व्हेयर इज द न्यूज. लोल, न्यूज नहीं पढ़ने देगा हमको, बट यू नो दैट दिस इज हैपनिंग. ओके, बट लेट मी शो यू सम अदर स्टफ रिलेटेड टू द सेम टॉपिक. अच्छा, ये देखो, अमेरिका इज मिसिंग मनी. एक और हेडलाइन यहाँ पे, $2.3 ट्रिलियन मिसिंग है. द पेंटागॉन्स $35 ट्रिलियन अकाउंटिंग ब्लैक होल, ये 2020 का न्यूज है. पेंटागन लॉस्ट ट्रैक ऑफ $2 ट्रिलियन. तो बार बार पेंटागन के पैसे और वेपन्स ऐसे ही खो जाते हैं, ठीक है, और ये मैजिकली कुछ और लोगों के पास चले जाते हैं. फकिंग नाजीज इन द यूक्रेन गवर्नमेंट. यस. Does anyone here watch Avjit Chabra? I am interested in the new episode with AIM. Yes, I'm very curious as well. I am also a big fan of both of them. Patels generally own motels. They are now big into wines too. और पहले बहुत पटेल डॉक्टर्स भी थे यूएसए में, पहले पहले शुरू शुरू में. ओके, सो दैट्स द हिलेरियस पार्ट गाइस. तो पेंटागन ने पैसे खो दिए और वेपन्स भी खो दिए. अरे मेरा आर्मी टैंक कहाँ गया? जेब में ही रखी थी. यस यस, दैट इज द थिंग गोइंग ऑन हियर. दैट, अरे कहाँ गया, कहाँ रखा $6.2 billion? ओके, लेट्स सी व्हाट एल्स आई हैड नोटेड. ओके, सो खालिस्तानी पन्नू भाई, ही बिलीव्स इन कॉन्स्पिरेसी थ्योरीज. हैव यू ऑल नोटिस दिस? ये जो तीन, एक के बाद एक तीन खालिस्तानियों का मौत हो गया, तो इसमें से हमको तो सबको लग रहा है कि हाँ शायद रॉ ने रा की साजिश है, रियली शायद रॉ की साजिश है. And Kushal Mehra has been more of a mainstream, has had a more mainstream view on this. He's saying that, see, this is what happens when you grow snakes in your backyard. He's addressing this to the Canadian government that, see, you had encouraged all these criminals. Now they are having sort of a gang rivalry and they're shooting at each other. Okay. But I think it definitely it's an issue of Raw doing some things so that Narendra Modi's new USA presence was not hampered. I think that's why these guys got killed. That otherwise they would have rallied a lot of people. These people were key leaders in the Khalistani movement, and I think that's why they got killed. And it's pretty fascinating as an Indian, as a 90s kid who thought that, अरे इस देश का तो कुछ नहीं होगा, अरे गरीबी है, अरे खाने को कपड़ा नहीं होगा, खाने को रोटी नहीं होगा, पहनने को कपड़े नहीं होंगे, और कैस्ट सिस्टम है. अचानक हम 5th लार्जेस्ट जीडीपी है और यहाँ वहाँ पे हमारे शत्रुओं को उड़ाते फिर रहे हैं. वेरी वेरी मूवी लाइक डील, राइट? But obviously it might as well be a coincidence that that guy really had blood cancer in UK and died. This guy really had a gang rivalry and got shot. That guy really got into some dealings with terrorists and got killed in Pakistan. It may be a coincidence, all these three things. But the fun part is there's a fourth Khalistan leader, something Pannu. He हाँ, इनका नाम है गुरपतवंत पन्नून. This guy has gone into hiding because he thinks Indian government is actually hounding him out and they want to kill him too. So even if Kushal Mehra doesn't believe in these conspiracy theories, even if we can have sane heads and think that, yeah, it's probably a conspiracy theory, he thinks it's not a conspiracy theory. He actually believes that Indian government is after him. Okay, that's the hilarious part. Let me show you that news. He is now absconding. अरे कहाँ गया? Share screen. Yeah. Separatist Gurpatwant Pannoon in hiding as 3 Khalistani terrorists die in 45 days. So, yeah, many Khalistani terrorists in the US, Canada, and the UK, Australia, Pakistan, besides other countries, have gone into hiding. इन सब को अभी कॉन्स्पिरेसी थ्योरी पसंद हो रहा है, ठीक है? तो हम क्या करें? जिन लोगों को डराने के लिए शायद ये किया गया होगा, उन लोगों को तो डर लग रहा है. अब बाकी हम बोल सकते हैं कि नहीं, कॉन्स्पिरेसी थ्योरी है and they just died by coincidentally. So you can decide who to believe. Hardeep Singh Nijjar, Paramjit Singh Panjwar, and the suspicious death of another terrorist, Avtar Singh Khanda, in the UK. All these people have been killed and now Pannu is hiding. Okay, Jai Hind Dosto became a new member. Thanks a lot, Jai Hind. Are Maximus bhai, okay. Yeah, let me check some comments again. As Pakistanis say, Raki Sadish. Yeah, seems like it. अरे मैक्सिमस भाई बता दो हेडफोन से क्या होता है, क्या है? लंबे समय तक पहनने से सर पे गड्ढा हो जाता है. होली शिट. Okay, Abhay Agarwal is saying too many coincidences. Yes, one of them was shot by unknown persons. AIM said that his source from Raw had predicted this. Okay, and there's a saying in FBI which is that there are no coincidences. Nina is saying, I think probably only that Pakistani assassin was legit. Rest of it may be a coincidence. Fair enough. But my point is that these people fear it. Okay, otherwise it can very well be a coincidence. Coincidence भी हो सकता है, conspiracy भी हो सकता है, तभी ना conspiracy theory है. नहीं तो अब तक तो इंडियन गवर्नमेंट के खिलाफ यूएन ने कुछ चार्टर वार्टर डाल दिया होता कि नहीं नहीं, टेररिस्ट स्टेट है, वो हर जगह पे टेररिस्ट फंडिंग कर रहा है, मार रहा है बेचारे खालिस्तानियों को। देयर इज एम्बिग्युइटी, इसीलिए तो वो मतलब रॉ को इतना पैसा दिया जा रहा है एम्बिग्यूअस रखने के लिए। ओके, अदर थिंग्स आई वांटेड टू डिस्कस इज, या, this has been going on in my mind for a while, that see, people who are Hindus today, especially lower caste people, they, I think, are the descendants of some of the bravest people in the history of mankind, right? Because what have our ancestors faced? Okay, I say especially lower castes, but I don't think it's entirely fair, because all castes faced challenges in different ways. But anyway, our ancestors have faced tigers and cow and I mean elephants chasing after them when they were living in caves. They have faced floods without the help of technology or weather predictions. They have faced wars. They have faced famines. They have faced nature in all its wrath. Then they have faced Islamic invasions. They have faced Christian missionaries. All our ancestors have faced at some point in their lives in the last 1 to 3,000 years. Okay, then they have faced Islamic threats. People have called our ancestors names. People have asked our ancestors to become Muslims. People have asked our ancestors to become Christians. They have threatened our ancestors that बन जाओ मुस्लिम नहीं तो मार देंगे, और या फिर बन जाओ क्रिश्चियन तब तो इतना पैसा दे देंगे तुमको. Lower castes have faced this, and even then those lower castes who have remained Hindus are some of the descendants of some of the bravest people on earth. And the descendants of Kshatriyas are, I think, descendants of Brahmins are also descendants of some of the bravest people, because a lot of the Brahmins were the nobility. A lot of them converted, but most Brahmins had to stand their ground and say that नहीं नहीं, गला काटना है काट दो, हम तो हिंदू रहेंगे, हम तो वेद ही पढ़ेंगे, जो करना है जो उखाड़ना है उखाड़ लो. ऐसे लोगों के डिसेंडेंट्स हैं हम आज हिंदूज. ओके, एंड ऑब्वियसली we are probably the only people who can say that we are the descendants who still follow at least that culture in name or in real life in practice, who follow Hindu customs. We are the only people who have remained that way because our ancestors were so brave. So I think that makes suicide an absolutely morally an unacceptable thing for Hindus. More so than anyone else, I think Hindu kids and Hindu descendants, people who are Hindus today, have absolutely no moral authority, moral right to commit suicide. And I know suicide is it just happens. Suicide is an instinctive thought. Suicide is a tendency. But even then, people should really think about it a lot. Okay, all of us Hindus who are watching this live stream, at some point in our lives we should really think very hard about our ancestors and how they stood up to atrocities and still remained Hindus. And then we should also think about what are the things that we fear most today, which might might make us think of suicide. Okay, what are those things which might make us so sad that we might be drawn towards suicide? And we should play that scenario in our heads. We should act that scenario out in our heads and think that, okay, if this girlfriend or boyfriend left me, would I be really that sad? What would that situation be? Let's imagine that situation. Or if I lost this job, would I really give up and commit suicide? After all, suicide is a choice, guys. But at the same time, play out that scenario in your head, but at the same time remember that what the fuck your ancestors went through. You are definitely not facing anything as tough as the things your ancestors faced. हर इंसान इस दुनिया में जो आज जिंदा है, उनके एंसेस्टर्स ने बहुत अजीबोगरीब चीजें फेस किए हैं. That is true. But Hindus, most of all, who have remained Hindus, they have faced all the things faced by everyone else on earth. And on top of that, they have not fucking converted at the face of threats, at the face of paying jizya taxes, even the lower castes. That's what I'm saying. So their descendants now do not have any justification to commit suicide. And what I was saying yesterday to a friend, that see, y'all can say that a lot of things have become worse as time has passed on, right? But after all, we have technology and capitalism today in its best possible scenario. Your health may be fucked up because of your bad posture or working from home all the time, or maybe because you are hooked on to games or so much medicines all around, bad food, bad diet, etc. But even then, a lot of it is still up to you, and you can still get back on the healthy track. But in terms of comfort, we are today, even a lower middle class or a middle class person today is more comfortable than the biggest comfort faced by any king in the history of our country, right? We are more, I am right now more comfortable than what Chandragupta Maurya or Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj faced, right? And while in that situation, do we really have any moral right to, any moral justification to commit suicide? No, we don't, right? What was the biggest comfort Chandragupta Maurya or Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj facing? At night when he was sleeping, with that 38-degree, 40-degree heat, maybe two dasis were waving a bit of a fan, standing on his both his sides. Chanakya did not face that, obviously, and neither did all the other lower castes. उनको कोई हवा करने वाला भी नहीं था, और आज हम एसी में बैठे हैं, जब जब जी में आ रहा है, कॉफी पी रहे हैं. So we are having a way better life than any of our ancestors, even the best and most successful of our ancestors. So I think we should keep that in mind. Nina is saying, Abhay Agarwal, same story with me. Grandparents left all cattle, all farms and came here from Lahore only. I see. Lokavya is saying, suppose we Hindutwadis manage to elect the BJP in perpetuity, what would be your practical expectations from BJP politically, economically, militarily and territorially? POK. नहीं, territorially POK तो हम POK, right? पीओके के लोगों को का क्या करना है, वो प्रश्न का उत्तर तो अभी सेटिस्फाइंगली किसी ने भी नहीं दिया है ना. आप भी बोलिए, अगर आपको लगता है कि पीओके अभी वापस लेना है, तो उनके लोगों को कहाँ भेजेंगे? उनके लोगों का क्या आइडियोलॉजी होगा, उसके बारे में तो कोई कंसेंसस नहीं है. तो आई डोंट थिंक पीओके इज अ प्रायोरिटी. But whatever we have now, defending that is definitely a priority at any fucking cost. Other than that, everything that you want from BJP, I think will happen with BJP in power, especially as time progresses, because everything can't be done overnight. You all know this. Even the biggest Ekam Sanatan Bharat Dal supporter will probably know this. And I support Ekam Sanatan Bharat Dal on a moral level. अभी वोट देने का तो उपाय नहीं है, क्योंकि यहाँ पे कोई कैंडिडेट नहीं होगा. But I will prop up Ekam Sanatan Bharat Dal as much as possible, because we need such a voice. But you all know that these things can't happen overnight. We are fighting against 150 years of propaganda against Hindus, and 75 years of what, 200-300 years of economic destruction. ये सब करने से पहले अगर ओवर्टली हिंदू चीजें करते फिरेंगे, तो लोगों का दिमाग और भी सटक जाएगा. और ये इतना इतना कम कर रहा है, उससे ही दिमाग सटक रहा है. तो दिमाग सटकाना भी बैलेंस में रखना होगा. Because I have said this story before as well. Because see, since I was a very much an anti-Hindu person until 2021, my mind changed because of Sandeep Sanyal's book. So if I had not read Sandeep Sanyal's book in 2021, if I had not become a libertarian in 2018, listening to Jordan Peterson, Ben Shapiro, imagine, without me going through all these transitions out of my own accord, out of my own research, imagine Narendra Modi coming to power in 2014 when I was a far left fucking commie, and shoving all these right-wing ideas, both economically and culturally, all these right-wing ideas down my throat in policy, when most of the country doesn't even know that their country was great. Even just 2 weeks back, I had a conversation with my friend. She has a diploma in some gender studies or something like that. She's a very old friend. I know her since I was in class 3, and no, I was in class 6 and she was in class 3. I know her from that time. Okay, so she's very woke, etc. So she sees my live stream schedule and she's reading like this. Okay, that Artha Shastra, what is that? I have heard somewhere. Okay, so this woman who knows all about the bad things about Hinduism, we have so much of Sati Pratha, Brahminical patriarchy, casteism, she can't remember the word Artha Shastra. That is the kind of population we are dealing with. तो यहाँ पे ऐसे सिचुएशन में थोड़ा बहुत ग्रेजुअली ही काम करना है. मोदी को थोड़ा बहुत इकोनॉमी में स्टेबिलिटी लाने दो, इकोनॉमिक प्रॉस्पेरिटी का एकदम रॉक सॉलिड सिचुएशन बनाने दो. उसके बाद थोड़ा कल्चर राइट विंग और फ्री मार्केट पॉलिसीज योगी आदित्यनाथ के सामने होगा, मुझे लग रहा है, क्योंकि आई सी दैट योगी आदित्यनाथ अंडरस्टैंड्स द वैल्यू ऑफ इकोनॉमिक प्रॉस्पेरिटी एंड एक्जैक्टली हाउ टू अचीव दैट. इकोनॉमिक प्रॉस्पेरिटी सबको ही लगता है कि हाँ होना तो चाहिए, मगर कैसे होता है ये सबको पता नहीं है. और ग्रेजुअली जो चीज की बीजेपी के हाथ से नहीं होगा, उसके लिए हम यूट्यूबर्स को, मेनली यूट्यूबर्स को, because we are the YouTube is the biggest influential channel for the youth, right? We have to absolutely hammer this idea in the heads of all upcoming youths who are now coming into YouTube and watching political stuff, 16 to 25, and then people who will further be 16 to 25 in this age group. We have to hammer this idea in their heads that हर चीज में योर फर्स्ट रिप्लाई और फर्स्ट कंसर्न शुड नॉट बी दैट सरकार क्यों कुछ नहीं कर रही है, सरकार को कुछ करना चाहिए, सरकार को कुछ करना चाहिए, ये आइडिया दिमाग से हटाना होगा। और ये हम लोगों को ही बता के करना होगा। उसके बाद ऐसे लोग ही पावर में जाएंगे या फिर पावर वालों को बोलेंगे कि तुम ज्यादा काम करना बंद करो, तुम जितना रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी अपने कंधों पे लोगे उतना तुम चुतियापा करोगे, उतना तुम टैक्स लोगे हमसे। तो वो किसी ना किसी दिन ग्रेजुअली कमाते जाना है, इसको कम होते जाना है। दैट इज द गोल। Government responsibility has to end, because one thing, I had a nice discussion with with one of my viewers on Instagram. She was saying that in order to counter West Bengal's failed economic policies and anti-Hindu policies, the center should be so strong that they should do this and that and this and that. She gave a list of 4 or 5 insane things that the center should do, and then I said that, see, you are saying all these things with the predication that Yogi Adityanath will be in power or Narendra Modi will be in power. So you are entirely dependent on good people, good, nice human beings, honest human beings coming to power. What happens when such a human being doesn't come to power? What happens when Rahul Gandhi or Arvind Kejriwal, Mamta Banerjee becomes the prime minister? What happens then? So you always have to reduce the powers of the government as much as possible. You have to reduce your dependency from the government as much as possible. You have to push that as right as possible. क्योंकि एक दिन आएगा जबकि ममता बनर्जी, अरविंद केजरीवाल या ऐसे एंटी हिंदू लोग फिर से पावर में आएंगे किसी ना किसी एक दिन, ठीक है? टाइम इज साइक्लिकल, सब बुरे चीज वापस आएंगे कभी ना कभी। तब वो जब पावर में आएंगे तब उनके हाथ में ऐसा इंडियन इंस्टीट्यूशन नहीं होना चाहिए जिसमें से कि हर किसी को ऐसे हम उड़ा दे सकते हैं, किसी को भी कभी कहीं भी हैंडल कर सकते हैं। वो सिचुएशन नहीं होना चाहिए, एंड व्हिच इज व्हाई वी शुड, आवर प्रायोरिटी शुड बी टू एब्सोल्युटली एलिमिनेट दिस सेंटेंस कॉल्ड सरकार को कुछ करना चाहिए फ्रॉम आवर माइंड्स। ओके, हर्षय सिंह, ओह गॉट इट यार, मेरे एंसेस्टर्स एक नए गांव में आए तो, लेकिन कहाँ से आए ये पता नहीं है। दे आल्सो प्रोबब्ली गॉट डिस्प्लेस्ड ड्यू टू इस्लामिक इन्वेजन, या प्रोबब्ली इतना टाइम था लाने को। ओके, not the whole issue. Okay, Saraswati namstubhyam varade, अरे बाप रे ये पूरा श्लोक है। Perform your karma. Yes, everyone perform your karma, and remember everyone has to follow their own they are saying they had weapons, guns, swords and all. Yeah, not all really. Okay, this is a good point. Perform your karma. You have to remember that you have to be a person of all the castes, all the varnas today. Okay, you have to be a Brahmin when you are doing scholarly work, when you are reading Indian scriptures, Indian history, economics. You have to behave like a Brahmin. You have to think, pretend like you are a Brahmin, that you have to be as educated as a guru or acharya. With that same academic rigor and academic vigor, you have to study these things. You have to be a kshatriya. You have to know martial arts. You have to own some self-defense things in your house. You have to be a vaishya. You have to be good at earning money. You have to have a stable income, and you have to be a shudra. You have to do all the menial cleaning up things in your house, etc. Okay, all of that. You have to play the role of all 4 varnas. Perform your karma and uphold your dharma. Yes. The next thing I wanted to discuss is that this is some fun transgenderism topics. California is planning to kidnap children. Okay, this is the latest. I wonder if you guys have heard this. We basically need street power. Street power का problem ये है कि everyone can say that we need street power, and I 100% agree that we need street power. But the problem is, you cannot really ask someone else to do what you are not willing to do yourself. Are you willing to pick up a lathi and face getting killed or beaten up by anti-Hindu people? Are you willing to have countless FIRs in your name? Are you willing for your children or your brothers and sisters to have countless FIRs in their name and spending their nights in lockups? If you are not ready to do that, how can you expect other people to do that? ओके, स्ट्रीट पावर का नाम यही है, स्ट्रीट पावर ऐसे ही होगा. विल हैव टू नीड विल नीड पीपल हु आर रेडी टू गो टू जेल काउंटलेस टाइम्स. तो बट बोलोगे किसको? जिसके साथ पहचान है, जिसका तुम भला चाहते हो, ऐसे लोगों को बोल पाओगे कभी के नहीं तुम जरा लाठी वाठी लेके बजरंग दल ज्वाइन करो भाई, मारपीट करो रास्ते में जाके. व्हाट डू यू थिंक अबाउट हिंदू गर्ल्स फाउंड विद मुस्लिम गाइज? हाउ टू स्टॉप दैट? यू कांट स्टॉप दैट. हाउ विल यू स्टॉप दैट? So many relationships suck when people are younger, and people make bad decisions and bad choices consciously and unknowingly. तो उसके ऊपर एक अगर रिलीजन का भी लेयर घुस जाए, वो कैसे प्रिवेंट होगा? We also condemn street power though. Yeah, condemning needs to be stopped. That I would agree. We need to stop condemning people like Bajrang Dal, and we should be saying that, yeah, what a great thing you are doing. But I don't think in all honesty you can actually ask someone or request someone to become a part of the street power. That shlok is basically saying that I am going to begin my education through my work. Please bless me, oh Lord Saraswati, माँ सरस्वती. लॉर्ड सरस्वती कैसे होगा? लॉर्ड का फीमेल क्या? हाँ हाँ, लेडी सरस्वती. आई सी. Okay, now check out this news. California bill that could punish parents who don't affirm children's gender is reckless, a psychotherapist is saying. Okay, a psychotherapist is commenting on that. A California bill aims to control parents' medical decisions about their children by compelling them to provide gender affirming care. Parents fighting custody battles could be liable for child abuse if they don't affirm their kids' gender under the recently amended AB 957. The legislation, if it becomes law, would require judges presiding over such disputes to favor the parent who best affirms the minor's preferred identity, though it doesn't outline what affirmation includes. Nice. Okay. The other thing I wanted to discuss is there's this person called Atif Rashid. He destroyed Ilhan Omar. Okay, have you all heard that news? When Ilhan Omar boycotted Modi's event, this guy called Atif Rashid from BJP, he's I think Ashraf only. He comes out and says that no, I'm a Muslim and I'm living freely and I'm having a great life in India. क्या problem है तुमको? Indian Muslim leader Atif Rashid was hit back hard has hit back hard at US lawmaker Ilhan Omar, who accused the Narendra Modi government of repressing minorities. In a sharp reply, Atif Rashid said, the quote, "I live freely in PM Narendra Modi's India." The Indian Muslim leader also asked the US congresswoman to quote unquote stop spitting poison. He responded to Omar's anti-Modi post on Twitter, where she declared that she would be boycotting the Indian Prime Minister's US Congress address. Okay. Next topic I want to get into is विवेक रामास्वामी का जो रिप्लाई था टू अलेक्जेंड्रिया ओकेसियो कॉर्टेस. आई लव दैट. रामास्वामी मेक्स अ फूल आउट ऑफ अलेक्जेंड्रिया ओकेसियो कॉर्टेस. तो रामास्वामी ने कहा कि we will read the exact quote what Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez also said. Okay, then we will get into what Ramaswamy responded, because Ramaswamy said that typical fact agnostic statements by Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and that he will be there at the event. That was hilarious. Vivek Ramaswamy. Oh, Twitter में थोड़ा ढूंढना पड़ेगा, रुको. What do you think is going to happen in Himachal after Manohar Lal incident? I don't know about the Manohar Lal incident. क्या हुआ वहां पे? Manohar Lal, Himachal. What happened in Himachal? ये सब तो न्यूज़ हिंदी में है. I can't read Hindi. Okay, let's see what Top India says. Hindus protest in Chamba over Manohar Lal's brutal murder. Give ultimatum of 30 days to jihadis to leave the state. Nice. अच्छा क्या हुआ था incident? On Thursday, 23rd June, Hindus in Chamba in Himachal Pradesh held a massive protest over Manohar Lal's brutal murder. Members of various Hindu organizations came to the streets and staged protests and gave an ultimatum of 30 days. हुआ क्या? Under this banner बैनर ऑफ संघनी मैसेकर संघर्ष समिति, ये क्या है? ऑफिस बेयरर्स ऑफ बजरंग दल, वीएचपी, हिंदू जागरण मंच, ब्राह्मण प्रतिनिधि सभा, सिप्पी कल्याण सभा, वाल्मीकि सभा, व्यापार मंडल चंबा participated in the rally. They demanded the formation of a fast track court to hear Manohar Lal's murder case and demanded capital punishment for the killers. The angry crowd raised slogans against the administration and the police. मगर हुआ क्या? On June 22nd, Rashtriya Devbhoomi Party chief Rumit Thakur posted on social media that he would meet the victim's family. अच्छा, यहाँ पे तो नहीं है न्यूज के हुआ था क्या? अच्छा, on June 6th, Hindu youth Manohar Lal went missing while returning home from his cowshed on the hilltop. He allegedly proceeded to meet his lover, a Muslim girl. The girl's family allegedly beat him with sticks and then sliced up his body and put it into a drain when he died. Fuck. When patrolling in the region on June 9, 4 soldiers from the Indian Reserve Battalion discovered the body. Some media reports suggest that the chopped body was found in a sack after locals noticed it and informed the police. Basically, Kedarnath ka script with opposite gender of love jihad. Hindu organizations learned about the incident and demanded strict action case against the accused. A case under section 302 and other relevant sections has been filed against the accused. আচ্ছা, স্ট্রিম থেকে আওয়াজ আসছে? হ্যালো হ্যালো, I think I was being too loud. Hello hello hello, is it fine now? Okay. So yeah, so Here to Learn is saying, what do you think is going to happen in Himachal after Manohar Lal incident? Well, some riots are going to happen, I think. The Hindu man was in relationship with a Muslim girl. They chopped his body into 8 pieces. I have seen the chopped body on Twitter. Yeah. Okay, Lokavya is saying, I want to read some books of Sanatan Dharam like Ramayana, Bhagavad Gita, Veds, Upanishads, Darshan, Manusmriti. Any suggestions where they can be available? Greeting fellow Sanatani Hindutvadi from Punjab. Acha, nice. तो आपका आपका मातृभाषा क्या है, लोकाव्या? Whatever your mathribhasha is, read all these Indic texts as much as possible in your mathribhasha only. If you can't read them, and if you can read in Hindi, best translation is by Gita Press. And if you do want to read it in English only, then I would suggest reading translations by Vivek Debroy. And as for मनुस्मृति का ट्रांसलेशन मैंने जो पढ़ा है वो है आर्य समाज का ट्रांसलेशन, तो वो बहुत लोगों को पसंद नहीं है. तो मनुस्मृति का आई वुड सजेस्ट read more than one translation, and you should read Arthashastra as well. That's very much in intact condition. Nina is saying this love jihad thing is taken very seriously in Himachal. Near my very own village, one case happened and there were candlelight marches and all. Can it escalate to unfortunate situation like 2002? Yes. And then what would be its impact? इम्पैक्ट क्या होगा? इम्पैक्ट कुछ भी नहीं होगा. वहां पर तो कांग्रेस गवर्नमेंट है, वहां उनको तो राइट नहीं चाहिए, और होगा तो ब्लेम तो कांग्रेस को ही होगा. वहां पे तो बीजेपी को ब्लेम नहीं कर पाएंगे. इट्स नॉट रेगुलर, वंस इन अ व्हाइल सम पुई साउंड. आई वंडर व्हाई. हेलो हेलो, पता नहीं कहां से हो रहा है. ओके, so screw Vivek Ramaswamy, we need to get to other topics. Oh yeah, check out this. Super athlete and ultra triathlon runner, okay, Cameron Hanes, he's a hunter as well. He says that the Hindu Sherni Tulsi Gabbard is normal. And what he means when he says she's normal is that even though she's a military veteran, even though she's a medic and fully trained in combat in the branch called MP, military police in the US military, and even though she's a member of the US Congress, she's in the House of Representatives, even then her house is absolutely normal. He had been to her house in Hawaii. She's a white Hindu woman, okay. Her mother was also a white Hindu woman. Her mother had basically converted to Hinduism. That's how the Hinduism has gone on in her family. So she had meetings with Vishwa Hindu Parishad, I think, and she got into some controversy because of some RSS functions that she had attended in the US. So she's properly a Hindutva lady. So but other than that, She has served in Iraq, she has served in Afghanistan up until even I think 2 3 years back, and now she has joined the Republican Party. She has finally left the Democratic Party. But the fun part is that she's insanely fit, and she trains Brazilian Jiu Jitsu. She knows countless martial arts. And Cameron Haynes, he does a podcast where people have to work out with him, have to carry a stone, run up the hill, etc. And Tulsi Gabbard did all that. She was able to do that at such an age where she has retired from the army. That was insanely fascinating. What do you mean converted? Ghar wapsi bolo. No, they are actually white people. So Muslim guys who do love jihad should be dealt in the same way the Muslims do to Hindu guys. Yes, they should be, but karega kon. And then what would be its impact? Okay, I think the same should be done to Muslim guys who did this Hindi. Okay, yeah, oh yeah. So Hindi is your matri bhasha. So read everything translated by Gita Press. Okay. Then what fun things I wanted to discuss? Obama tries to counterbalance Biden's hugs by worrying about pattharbazes. Yes, I that time has sailed. That ship has sailed because we already discussed this. Yeah, Modi gave an very intelligent reply to that stupid question that what is happening to Muslims in your country? Are you afraid about what's going to happen to democracy, etc.? He diverted that question really intelligently. He simply gone went on a tangent and went on a rant about how democracies really function. He just gave a definition of how democracies function. So that was a great way to counter that question. Okay, now, yeah, check this out. Now I need a poll from you guys. Should we start discussing Brahma Puran now, or should we get into a reaction video of that famous Ramachandra Guha? I'll have to change the thumbnail and name of this live stream because we did not get into Brahma Puran at all. Ramachandra Guha said in 2010 that the 10 reasons why India will not and must not become a superpower. Should we do a reaction video to that, or is it enough politics for one day and we should get into some peace and discuss Brahma Puran? Tell me here. Can we do a poll somehow here? Poll तो नहीं होता है ना, कैसे करते हैं मुझे पता नहीं है. But let me know with your okay. Abhay is saying reaction video. Yeah, some other people say what should we discuss. Okay, too late for Puran now. Kal kaj ache. Okay, so one undecided, one Brahma Purana, one reaction video. This is interesting. But that video of Ramchandra Guha is about 1 hour 5 minutes. Okay, we'll watch it in 1.5x because he speaks very slow. Too late for Brahma Puran. Okay, so only Ninad is saying that because he's in a different country. Okay, then more votes for Ramchandra Guha. So let's listen to what Ramchandra Guha's justification was for that. I have listened to half of it and I have not so far reached any justification for that part. That exactly why shouldn't India become a superpower? So far, the hint I have gotten is that, so spoiler alert, that I think he means that we have so many fault lines and they will get exacerbated if our GDP increases. Therefore, we should not become a superpower. So let's get into this. यूट्यूब का ऑडियो ठीक से आ रहा है कि नहीं, एक बार बता देना, ठीक है?
Thank you, David, and thank you all for coming here. Laryngitis is also known as too much bullshitting syndrome. When I was working on the book David mentioned, India After Gandhi, I found in the course of my research that from the time India came into being as an independent nation in August 1947, right up till the early 1990s, this experiment with nationhood and democracy was being written off. Very many obituaries were written about India. It was said that it was too diverse to be run as a single nation, so it would balkanize into many parts. It was said that it was too poor and full of too many illiterate people to.
So this is from when he was writing his book India After Gandhi.
function as a democracy, so the military would take over. It was said that it lacked the ability to feed itself, so it would face mass starvation and famine. And I didn't really understand until I started working on this book what a what a miracle the survival of India is, and how these fears were justified, because never before had a country so diverse.
Okay, for context, guys, Ramachandra Guha is a historian and he's saying that what a miracle it is that we have survived. I wonder if he will say those things now. He was saying all those things because the right wingers, Hindutva, fascists were not in power, okay? And for another context, he is the same person whose name is Ramchandra, but he says that Ram is an outsider god in Bengal, even though he is a Bengali, whose name is Ramchandra, literally. Hilarious. And thirdly, he wrote a very interesting article in, I think, 2015. Okay, he he had said that that where are the right wing intellectuals? राइट विंग में कोई इंटेलेक्चुअल क्यों नहीं है? राइट विंग में सिर्फ भोसरी वाले क्यों है? क्योंकि सीताराम गोयल रामस्वरूप का नाम तो कभी नहीं सुना है, उनको कभी डिबेट नहीं करेगा, उनका बुक कभी नहीं पढ़ेगा, कॉनराडल्स, डेविड फ्रॉली, सबको इग्नोर कर दिया. तब 2015 में ये बोला, उसके बाद ही संजीव सन्याल आने लगा, जेसाई दीपक आने लगा, विक्रम संपत आने लगा, और इनका बिजनेस बंद करवा दिया, इनका रात में अब सोना वोना हराम हो गया है, जीना हराम कर दिया है इन लोगों ने. So be careful what you wish for, okay? Ramachandra Guha said in 2015, where are right-wing intellectuals? And now see what happened.
In terms of religion and language, been constituted as a single nation. Never before had a population, the majority of which could not read or write, been granted the franchise to elect their own leaders. Now, towards the end of the period I was working on the book took a very long time to write. India is a large country. It's a complicated history. For several years, the book was traveling in my computer under the fine name Mythical History Book, because I wasn't sure whether I'd ever complete it. So it took, the publisher was very indulgent as I missed deadline after deadline. But towards the end of the period I was writing the book, finishing the book, I found that in the press, very different kinds of songs were being sung about India. My research told me that for most of our history as an independent nation, we were being told, you're going down the tube. But when I was finishing the book in 2005 and 2006, the Western press was telling us, you guys are the new stars of the future. And I...
और ये न्यू स्टार ऑफ द फ्यूचर से रामचंद्र भाई को प्रॉब्लम है. बट रिमेंबर वन थिंग, दिस इज probably one of the most annoying things the West has said about us. ये जो कांग्रेस का जो इकोनॉमिक पॉलिसी था, प्रशांतो या what PC Mahalanobis is his name, प्रशांत चंद्र महालानोबिश. He was apparently a philosopher, thinker, mathematician, economist, बहुत वाले सब कुछ करते थे, सब कुछ में ही चुतियापा करते थे. तो he was the basically economic advisor of Nehru, and he was the one who came up with this idea that we'll just have 4 tables, and then the entire economy will function because of my calculations on this particular table, and जो हम यहाँ पे जो allocate कर देंगे बजट वैसे ही सब कुछ हो जाएगा, ब्यूरोक्रेसी सब कुछ कर देगा. अच्छा, और कुछ इनोवेशन करना है, हाँ एक और उसके लिए टेबल बना दो, हो जाएगा. एंटरप्रेन्योरशिप तो ऐसे पेपर वर्क में ही हो जाएगा. तो इस सब के वजह से हमारा जो जीडीपी का जो हाल था, which became 1.1% in 1991 when Saddam Hussein invaded Kuwait, तेल सब खत्म हो गया, जीडीपी ग्रोथ 0. ओके, उसके पहले एक दो बार हमारा जीडीपी ग्रोथ रेट माइनस भी हुआ है, जिसका मतलब है कि जीडीपी कम हो गया था. ऐसा होता भी कैसे है? तो but that's common for other countries as well. But all these things happened when Narasimha Rao was brought back from his retirement and said that भैया अब आप कुछ कीजिए, हमसे और नहीं हो पा रहा है. So then he basically says to Manmohan Singh that, okay bro, do your magic, what you wanted to do all these years. So and Manmohan Singh says that okay, we'll have to just say whatever IMF says. हमको IMF से अभी भीख चाहिए, भीख लेने के लिए जो IMF बोलेगा हमको करना पड़ेगा. इसमें से नरसिम्हा राव को क्रेडिट देने का, कांग्रेस को क्रेडिट देने का, मनमोहन सिंह को क्रेडिट देने का, किसी को भी क्रेडिट देने का कोई जस्टिफिकेशन मुझे आज तक यहाँ पे समझ में नहीं आता है कि कैसे लिबर्टेरियन डिस्कशन ग्रुप में बोलते फिरते हैं कि नो नो नरसिम्हा राव वाज द ग्रेटेस्ट प्राइम मिनिस्टर ऑफ इंडिया, मनमोहन सिंह वाज द ग्रेटेस्ट प्राइम मिनिस्टर ऑफ इंडिया बिकॉज दे डिड दोज रिफॉर्म्स इन 1991। अरे भोसड़ी के पूरा दीवार पे यू हैड योर बैक अगेंस्ट द वॉल एंड समवन वाज स्ट्रैंगलिंग यू, तो उस स्ट्रैंगलिंग में थोड़ा सेल्फ डिफेंस ऐसे धक्का दे दिया, उसके लिए क्रेडिट चाहिए तुमको। और जो कांग्रेस वाले बोलते हैं कि उनको क्रेडिट चाहिए 1991 के लिए क्योंकि देखो हमारे प्राइम मिनिस्टर ने ऐसा किया, वो तो सबसे बड़े चूतिए हैं। गला दबाने के लिए और गला से हाथ उठाने के लिए दोनों के लिए कोई कैसे क्रेडिट ले सकता है? क्योंकि दे आर द सेम पीपल हु विल से दैट नहीं 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 1991 से पहले तो इकोनॉमी एकदम ग्रेट था, हमने तो कुछ भी गलत पॉलिसीज पोजीशंस नहीं लिए थे, सब तो ठीक चल रहा था, चंगा चल रहा था। मगर 1991 में भी हमने ऐसे बढ़िया चीजें किए कि उसके बाद इकोनॉमी बहुत बढ़िया हो गया। तो इकोनॉमी बढ़िया बढ़िया हो गया 1991 के बाद, उसके लिए भी क्रेडिट चाहिए, उसके पहले चूतिया इकोनॉमी था उसको भी अच्छा भी बोलेंगे। तो दैट्स द सिचुएशन विद कांग्रेस। Ninad is saying you can feel the hankar of a leftist in his voice. Lol. Yeah, they are always all-knowing Param Gyani. Yes, that's called yeah, Hindu rate of growth. That is the problem. Yeah. So then they said that this is the the stupid Hindus, the Hindus who do yagyas and do satipratha because of their evil caste system. That is why their GDP growth rate is 1.1%. That is the okay. Can anyone else hear the ghost in the background? अरे Maximus क्या क्या फूक रहा है भाई? রঘুবংশের 67 জেনারেশনে আমার একটি পূর্বজ সদস্য। Yes. Okay, let's carry on with this.
My talk today is an attempt to resolve that contradiction, if you will, or attempt to explain that contradiction. Now, the reason that India was written off at birth and for many years afterwards, this was precisely because of the uniqueness and indeed the recklessness of the Indian political experiment. The reason that more recently India is being talked about as a rising global power is due to two things: to its political success in staying united and in holding regular, free and fair elections. Every election in India is the largest exercise of the democratic franchise in human history, simply because there are so many of us. And we've done it 15 times, which is quite staggering at the national level. And of course, there are countless state and provincial and district elections. And I must say, especially in the context of what happened in Florida in 2000, I think Indian elections are as fair as, or as almost as fair as elections held anywhere in the so-called developing world.
Yeah, this is actually a great point, which now he will not say, obviously. क्योंकि तब भी कांग्रेस पावर में था, कहीं कहीं पे बीजेपी जीत रहा था। आज बीजेपी पावर में है, कहीं कहीं पे कांग्रेस जीत रहा है, तृणमूल जीत रहा है। मगर अब इनको लग रहा है कि अब तो पूरा फैशिज्म आ गया है। That is the problem, and that's another great thing that Narendra Modi actually pointed out in his US address. He said that we have so many, we have 5,000 political parties, and 20 of them are running different parts of the country. That was a great thing to point out, that see, you all are being told that BJP is a fascist party, I am a fascist who's running the entire country, right? There are 20 other political parties who are running different regions of the country.
So one of the reasons that there was a surprising respect for India in kind of the global discourse was its counterintuitive political success in staying united and staying democratic. The other and possibly more important reason was the spectacular growth rates of the economy experienced, especially from the 1990s onwards. Growth rates touching 7 and 8%, which are much higher than those experienced in Europe and North America. The global recession, India seems to have come out of it as well. So really, we're talking about two statistics: a nation of 1 billion people, half of which is
well, actually, global recession in 2008 did not hit India that hard. If you see the GDP growth rate chart, India was almost unaffected by the 2008 crash. Okay, the entire world's all major economies, their graph went like this all of a sudden in 2008, like how it happened during Corona as well. But since we are now more integrated with the entire world's economy, but in 2008 that was not the case. There was hardly any economic downside to the 2008 crash in India.
Whom are illiterate, holding free, fair, and regular elections, unique in the history of Asia and Africa at least. A largely poor agrarian country with a history of being colonized, suddenly emerging out of a low-level growth path to achieve growth rates of 8% and more. Now, Aldous Huxley, the British writer who visited India while we were still a colony in the late 1920s, and wrote a charming...
For those who have read How I Became a Hindu, you all know Aldous Huxley. Sitaram Goel has spoken about him many times in his book. He was a big fan. I mean, not fan in the sense that he was Aldous Huxley was his hero, Sitaram Goel's hero, but he read Aldous Huxley very extensively.
book about it called Jesting Pilot. Uh, one of the places he visited was the Taj Mahal. And he said about the Taj Mahal, he said, "Marble I see conceals a multitude of sins." And those two figures, 15 general elections for a billion people, a decade and a half of 8% growth rates, conceal a multitude of deficiencies. And that's
हाँ, अब शुरू हुआ, ठीक है? तो इनका मानना है, इनका वो कहना है कि अरे 8% जीडीपी ग्रोथ रेट हुआ तो क्या हुआ? डेफिशिएंसीज तो रह गए। अरे डेफिशिएंसीज काहे हुआ? ये इकोनॉमिक ग्रोथ रेट के पहले तो डेफिशिएंसी नहीं था, क्योंकि डेफिशिएंसी स्पेलिंग ही किसी को करना नहीं आता था। क्योंकि you can't have equal prosperity for everyone. Everyone in the country cannot go around riding Teslas, but everyone can be equally poor. तो वही रख लेते, that was better. Deficiency काहे किया?
what I'm going to talk to you about today. The deep fault lines within Indian society that are sometimes invisible even to Indians. And the fault line I'm going to start with, because it, in a sense, underlines the imperfections of our democracy and the fragility of our economic growth path. The first fault line I'm going to talk about is a rising insurgency in central India, led by Maoist revolutionaries.
An insurgency that has been basically quashed on to this date, and it was supported by these same Marxist intellectuals. They will say that no, I'm not a Maoist, but they have a justification. Okay, so when Muslims do something bad, they say that yes, religion is bad, that's why these things are happening, or these people are poor, that's why these things are happening. When Maoists do something, they say that yes, ट्राइबल्स ब्रो दे आर सो सैड, इनका घर बार बिखर गया है, इसलिए ऐसा कर रहे हैं, गरीबी ब्रो. When Hindus do the same things out of some unjustified or justified desperation, that's when the clock turns. That's when all their conclusions shift and change immediately, like this. Then they will say, ab aa gaya Hindu fascism, which I was talking about for the last 100 years. Ki ab aayega. Now Hindu fascism has arrived because some riot happened somewhere.
The Republic of China has abandoned Mao, but they are a group of very committed, idealistic, almost fanatical young men and women who, in the forests and hills of central and eastern India, are attempting to create a one-party communist dictatorship.
जिनके पास खाने को पैसा नहीं है, मगर AK-47 का पैसा है. Yes, Ninad is saying he says revolutionaries, not terrorists. Yes, good point. Abhay is saying they are doing this because they are being oppressed. Yes.
And they've achieved a modest degree of success. Earlier this week, 72 policemen were killed in a daring attack by the Maoist insurgents. It was the largest loss of non-combatant troops in the history of independent India. Across a wide swathe of forests and hills, which spread across the states of Gujarat, of Maharashtra, Madhya Pradesh, Andhra Pradesh, Orissa, Jharkhand, and Chhattisgarh, right in the heart of India, you have a growing Maoist insurgency. And this Maoist insurgency has its roots in the dispossession of India's tribal people. Now, for the first 4 decades of Indian independence, our economic model was one of the state or the public sector occupying the commanding heights of the economy. In the early 1990s, we liberalized. We embraced a more outward economic policy, which gave much freer play to entrepreneurial energies within India and also integrated India much more actively into the global economy. In the past, we had followed the classical path of emerging developing economies of what was called import substituting industrialization. Now, this was overturned and we became increasingly globalized. Now, in my view, globalization has had both benign and brutal effects in India. The benign effects of globalization are manifest most directly and immediately in my hometown, Bangalore, where the fact that we have opened out to the world economy and the happy accident that we are 10 hours behind North America has allowed us to leverage a skilled workforce. Bangalore has a long tradition of high-quality science and engineering colleges, and the graduates of these colleges have powered the information technology industry, which is increasingly the back office of many major companies in the world, which maintain the accounts, the office systems. We also have a rising market for health services, so that medical transcriptions are read in Bangalore or in South India 8 or 10 hours ahead of America, and by the time North America, Europe picks up, the reports are there. So what you have in Bangalore is a showpiece of the benign effects of globalization, where globalization has uh, taken advantage of a skilled, educated workforce. It has generated income, created a middle class, and also spawned, as a happy byproduct, a wave of new philanthropy. So in my hometown, Bangalore, are some outstanding philanthropists, sort of uh, quasi or mini Bill Gates like figures, who have people from a modest middle class background, who are successful entrepreneurs.
Yes, Abhay. Tribals were oppressed, which led to Maoism. Kashmiri Pandits were oppressed, which led to their. It's such dark comedy, man. We have to laugh at these things, but they are so dark occurrences. And remember that thing that even the Mominpur violence in Kolkata in last year's Saraswati Puja, Republic Bangla held a debate panel discussion, and they called different intellectuals from different backgrounds, and they did not call uh, any politicians purposely, which I think Trinamool must have told them that ये सब किया तो अब तो बंद कर देंगे चैनल यहाँ पे. But they did a very sanitized, whitewashed discussion about how the riots happened, and there was a, I think, 5-day curfew in that area. But all those intellectuals sat down and concluded, and the Republic Bangla's anchor nodded in agreement, which is that, I remember the exact quote. That intellectual, Bengal intellectual, says that if you go and check their houses, those people who broke the houses and pandals of the Hindu Dalits who lived there, or the lower caste Hindus who lived there, the Muslims did that because if you check their houses, you will see that no helicopters land on their terraces, no swimming pools are there in their terraces, which is why they felt a desperate need, and because of their lack of education, they went and destroyed the houses of poor Dalit Hindus, जिनके घर में भी हेलीकॉप्टर नहीं लैंड करता है और स्विमिंग पूल नहीं रहता है.
So run big IT companies and have then invested their wealth in or donated their wealth in the promotion of primary education, healthcare for the poor, and so on and so forth. So that's the benign side of globalization. But there's also a brutal side, and the brutal side of globalization is played out, is being played out in central India, in the homelands of the tribal people. About 8% of India is tribal. So they're kind of outside the Hindu caste order, if you will. And they have lived among India's finest forests, alongside India's fastest flowing rivers. And now it's found that they live on top of India's most precious resources of bauxite and iron ore. And the fact that India is open now to the global economy, which includes not just the West, but China, has generated a new market for these mineral resources. And the rush to make profits by Indian and foreign companies has led to the dispossession of these tribal people. And
so you see, these are hints, these are the premises he's setting. These are probably one of the reasons why we must not become a superpower, right?
And that's at the root of the Maoist insurgency, which is a serious challenge to Indian democracy. It's a challenge to the Indian model of economic growth. It shows it up as partial and one-sided. And it also is a challenge to Indian democracy, because Indian democracy has done a moderately good job, not a perfect job, but a moderately good job of giving representation to religious minorities. Despite the provocation of being surrounded by Islamic states, we are not a
Holy shit, what did he just say? Moderately good job. तो थोड़ा ठीक किया है, ज़्यादा ठीक नहीं किया है. Listen to this.
Moderately good job, not a perfect job, but a moderately good job of giving representation to religious minorities. Despite the provocation of being surrounded by Islamic states, we are not a Hindu nation. We are a multi-religious secular nation. Despite a history of the most gross oppression of women, amidst, legitimized by a patriarchal religious order, women have equal rights under the Indian Constitution. Despite an inequitous and hierarchical caste system, there are vigorous programs of affirmative action for low caste.
Oh, सब बोल दिया एक लाइन में. Wow. Let's go through these one by one.
Legitimized by a patriarchal religious order, women have equal rights. Despite a history of the most gross oppression of women.
Most gross oppression of women इंडिया में ही हुआ है, और कहीं पे मोस्ट ग्रोस ऑपरेशन ऑफ वुमेन नहीं हुआ है भाई लोग. ओके, सऊदी अरेबिया ईरान में आज भी ग्रोस ऑपरेशन नहीं हो रहा है, और हो रहा है बिकॉज रिलीजन इज बैड ब्रो. और बाकी जगह में पहले 2000 साल पहले, 1500 साल पहले बाकी जगहों में सब लोग एकदम बिकिनी पर के पहन के घूम रहे थे, मगर इंडिया में बहुत ऑपरेशन था. इंडिया में कोई कौनचिका नहीं पहन रहे थे. Oh, Anushka Tyagi is watching the live stream. Nice. She disagrees with me on a lot of things on American politics and I love that because it makes me think harder.
It's legitimized by patriarchal religious order.
Yes, Nina, this is where Viddas found his inspiration. Mera mata chakra gaya.
Women have equal rights under the Indian Constitution. Despite inequitous and hierarchical caste system, they
हाँ, हायरार्किकल कास्ट सिस्टम सिर्फ इंडिया में ही था और कहीं पे कास्ट सिस्टम नहीं था, आज भी नहीं है. अशराफ पसमानदा नहीं है, बाहर सामुराई वामुराई कास्ट नहीं है, और स्मिथ ब्लैक स्मिथ कोई कास्ट जाति वर्णा कहीं पे कुछ नहीं है, सिर्फ हमारा ही है.
There are vigorous programs of affirmative action for low caste. But the tribals have been excluded from the formal democratic process. They are, in some ways, the people who have gained least and lost
अफर्मेटिव एक्शन जिसकी वजह से आज भी कास्टिज्म सॉल्व नहीं हुआ है.
most from 6 decades of democracy and development in India. And they the fact that the formal constitutional democratic political system has not given the tribal people an adequate voice, the added fact that economic globalization has led to economic deprivation for the tribal people, has delivered them into the waiting hands of the Maoist revolutionaries.
See, he's almost right but a little wrong in this case, right? He's saying that economic
Has led
globalization
to economic deprivation for the tribal people.
has led to economic deprivation, but the problem is that you have to address the elephant in the room. उनका जो model of development है, which is tied closely to their religion, you have to approach this with the critical theory of religion, not critical theory of race, or not simply economic prosperity is bad, which is what he's doing. But you have to understand that why that happened, and then pursue your economic prosperity by bypassing that as much as possible. We can't bypass that fully. We can't stop using coal. We can't stop using our minerals for now, but which is why we are targeting a zero emission system by 2070 at least. But ये सब इनको करने से किसने रोका था? जो कर रहा है उसको भी तो आज गाली दे रहे हो.
Has delivered them into the waiting hands of the Maoist revolutionaries, whose political program I personally have no sympathy with. Though I can see why they are successful, because apart from the deprivation of the tribal people, the tribals live in the hills and forests, which are classically perfectly well suited for the kind of guerrilla warfare that the Maoists practice. So that's a major challenge, a challenge that is much underappreciated within India too. I live in Bangalore, which is the economic showpiece
तो सी पूरा का पूरा माओइज्म डिफेंड कर दिया, जस्टिफिकेशन दे दिया.
of modern India. My friend David Malone was posted as Canada's distinguished High Commissioner in Delhi, which is the political showpiece of modern India. It's a city I visit often myself. And if you fly from Delhi to Bangalore and back, from the capital of India's thriving and robust democracy to the capital of India's, or to the showpiece of India's economic surge, below you on the ground, 35,000 feet below you on the ground, invisible to you, is this civil war being played out between Maoist insurgents and the Indian police, with the tribals caught in the crossfire. Now, that's one major challenge facing contemporary India, the political and economic system of contemporary India. It's a challenge from the left, but there's a simultaneous challenge from the right. And the challenge from the right is that of religious fundamentalism. Now, India was constituted in 1947, as I said, as a secular nation. But India was divided at birth into two nations: Pakistan, which was a Muslim homeland, and later on has become an Islamic republic. And so long as Pakistan exists, there will be provocations for Hindu fundamentalists in India to similarly constitute a state based on religious principles, a kind of Hindu Pakistan, if you will, in which in Pakistan non-Muslims have secondary rights.
So he is justifying, he's calling for the destruction of Pakistan. Can you see? He's saying that as long as there is a Pakistan, there will be provocations from Hindu fundamentalists. So if you want to stop Hindu fundamentalists from getting a voice or getting provoked, eliminate Pakistan. हो गया, इनका ही equation है ये.
They don't have equal rights to Muslims. So there is impetus that the existence of Pakistan provides for right-wing radical Hindu groups.
So eliminate Pakistan. हो गया.
To constitute India as a state in which Hindus, who are the dominant religion, dominant religious community, will have superior rights to Muslims and Christians and Parsis and Sikhs and Jains and so on. Now, this provocation was resisted at birth by our first and visionary Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru, who, working in the tradition of Mahatma Gandhi, did not discriminate on the basis of faith.
Uh-huh.
But
क्या बात है,
Over
क्या
the years,
बात है. इसीलिए सोमनाथ मंदिर को बनाने नहीं दे रहा था, आर्कियो टूरिज्म मरवा रहा था. He is calling for destruction of Pakistan because he wants Maoists like they're like here. Yes.
or over the decades, the secular
पाकिस्तान में ट्राइबल्स नहीं है, बांग्लादेश में ट्राइबल्स नहीं है, सब ट्राइबल सिर्फ मध्य प्रदेश और झारखंड छत्तीसगढ़ में है.
inclusive plural religious politics of Gandhi and Nehru
आहा,
have been challenged by
आहा,
aggressive right-wing Hindu fundamentalism. Sometimes with success, sometimes with less success.
yes, that is why Hindu Mahasabha gave equal rights to everyone, all citizens, regardless of gender, religion, caste, creed, etc., and even called for good self-defense rights. The Hindu Mahasabha constitution, draft constitution, which was rejected.
Between 1998 and 2004, the central government in India was led by a right-wing Hindu party. And the assertion of Hindu radicalism provides a kind of provocation for competitive religious radicalism. So within all our faith communities, within the Christians, the Sikhs, the Muslims, even the Jains, there is a strong hardcore fundamentalist element.
फेयर इनफ, इतना तो एडमिट किया है कि हर लोगों में रेडिकल्स होते हैं. चलो ठीक है.
Within each of India's major religious communities, there is a battle going on between liberal, plural forces on the one side and intolerant fundamentalist forces on the other.
और यहाँ पे हमारा इंटॉलरेंट फंडामेंटलिस्ट प्रधानमंत्री सबको रिसोर्सेज फ्रीबीज देते फिर रहा है. योगी आदित्यनाथ भी बोल रहा है कि हाँ, प्रॉपर इक्वलिटी होगा, पॉजिटिव डिस्क्रिमिनेशन नहीं होगा, नेगेटिव डिस्क्रिमिनेशन भी नहीं होगा. एकाम सनातन भारत दल, व्हिच इज अ कल्चरली मोर राइट विंग देन बीजेपी, इज आल्सो कॉलिंग फॉर इक्वल राइट्स फॉर ऑल. ऐसा है हमारे फंडामेंटलिस्ट्स.
And that's a challenge we have not yet fully overcome. Unlike, say, in Canada or in many other countries in Western Europe. And
Unlike Canada, कनाडा ने सब प्रॉब्लम सॉल्व कर लिए. हाँ, 2010 में अच्छा बातें बोल रहे थे. वेस्टर्न यूरोप, नॉर्थ अमेरिका, या वेस्टर्न यूरोप और नॉर्थ अमेरिका तो आज इनको पता नहीं है कि कैसे हैंडल करे सलमान रश्दी को मारने वाले लोगों को, पत्थरबाजों को. बट द फन पार्ट इज दैट इन डेजिग्नेटेड सर्वाइवर देयर इज अ डायलॉग वेयर इन द थर्ड सीजन आई थिंक, where they are discussing immigration, and they are saying that no, it's in the first season only. They are saying that, see, Western Europe took all these immigrants and refugees from all Middle Eastern countries. They are not having any problems. They are all Muslims. They are not facing any problems. So there's a fictitious Florida governor who is being asked to take some refugees, and that governor is refusing. He's a Republican. So the Democrat wife of the president is saying that, why aren't you taking them? Because Western Europe took them and they are not having any problems. Now see where they are in 2023.
Where religious practice is a private matter between an individual and his or her maker or
Waqf board is a private matter.
Lack thereof. In India, religious practice, religious beliefs spill over into the political domain, sometimes in deeply unpleasant and damaging and costly and bloody ways. Now, as it happens, when India was born in 1947, it faced these two challenges. A challenge from the religious right, most dramatically expressed in the assassination of Mahatma Gandhi 5 months after Indian independence by a Hindu fanatic. But there was also a challenge from the left.
ऐसा हिंदू फैनाटिक जिसने मुस्लिम के बदले में एक हिंदू रामराज्य चाहने वाले लोग को ही जाके उड़ा दिया. ठीक है. और and Hindu Mahasabha gave equal rights to all in their draft constitution.
6 weeks after Gandhi was murdered, the Communist Party of India, acting under orders from their Soviet masters, launched a countrywide insurrection against the infant Indian state. And that insurrection took 2.5 years to contain. The threat from the religious right and the simultaneous threat from the political left, which India experienced at its birth, was tamed and contained and managed because the center was resolute. Because the first generation of Indian nationalists, people like Jawaharlal Nehru, Vallabhbhai Patel, who was India's home minister, a very capable and outstanding organizer.
Very capable and outstanding organizer. Okay? जिसको कांग्रेस कोर कमेटी के सभा में सबसे ज्यादा वोट्स मिले थे, सब वोट्स मिले थे when they were deciding who should be the candidate for the Prime Minister of India. All of them voted for Vallabhbhai Patel. Not one single vote went to Jawaharlal Nehru. Even then, Jawaharlal Nehru became the Prime Minister, the first visionary Prime Minister, because Mahatma Gandhi said that, नहीं, इनको Prime Minister बनाओ, नहीं तो मैं तो खाना वाना छोड़ दूंगा. And then that visionary Prime Minister deindustrialized West Bengal.
Our first law minister, who came from an untouchable background, B.R. Ambedkar, who drafted the Democratic and Republican Indian Constitution. This first generation of Indian politicians made sure that the center held firm, that the challenges of religious radicalism on the right and of political extremism Marxist insurgency in the
I do give credit to Congress for carrying over the Indian state and at least not creating further destruction. आधा देश तो दो तरफ से दे दिया, उसके बाद और भी balkanization नहीं हुआ, इसके लिए थोड़ा क्रेडिट हम दे सकते हैं. But the challenges are not what he is saying. Hindu fundamentalists were not calling for the destruction of the Indian state or the destruction of the country or breaking up of the country. Hindus did not want partition. Hindus never called for partition even after that. So how is Hindu fundamentalism a goddamn threat to Jawaharlal Nehru?
The left were combated, were conquered, were domesticated, and a democratic constitution was forged in 1950, and our first elections were held in 1952. Now, 60 years later, the democratic center faces again a challenge from the left and from the extreme left and from the extreme right, from, so to say, the non-constitutional or extra-constitutional left and the extra-constitutional right.
Extra BJP is extra constitutional right, guys. Okay, Ninad is saying, yeah, his communist gods like Marx and Mao also are mixed with politics threatening secularism, no? Yes, and we have people who name their kids Stalin, Lenin, Taimur, but no one names their kids Adolf in the country, okay? No one even knows that Stalin, Mao, these people were as bad, as dangerous, as murderers, if not more, as Adolf Hitler.
But unlike in 1948 and 49, we do not have a resolute and capable center. Today in India, most political parties are family firms. This is true most obviously of the Congress Party. The Congress Party is one of the great political parties of the modern world. Now, most Indians who are alive now only know it as a family firm because most Indians are below the age of 40. And the Congress has been a family firm since 1975 or thereabouts. But for 90 years before that, it was an extraordinary institution. The Congress, from the late 19th century through the first decades of the 20th century, united a diverse and disparate population around a democratic, inclusive, secular agenda. It was a Congress that provided the first generation of nation builders in independent India. For most of its history, the Congress was run the way a modern political party should be run, as an open secular institution, which any talented individual could join, which held regular elections at different levels of the organization. So the Congress had national elections, it had provincial elections, it had district elections. But Indira Gandhi, who became Prime Minister more or less by accident in the late 1960s, converted the Congress into a family firm. And
okay, some important comments here. Abhay Agarwal is saying India was born in 1947. Modi ne US Congress mein 1000 year ka foreign rule bol ke dho diya. That was yes, extremely important. SRS is saying our leftists are so low IQ. How the hell they were celebrated for 75 years as intellectuals? Because they write in English. They write their papers in English. They write editorials in English. They speak in these international conferences in English. यहाँ पे अगर जाके कोई हिंदी या संस्कृत में बात करेगा तो उसको लात मार के निकाल देगा. सीताराम गोयल was proficient, insanely brilliant in English, but he was just ostracized. किसी ने कहीं पे उनको डिबेट नहीं किया, उसको जरा भी डेलिबरेटली उनको भाव नहीं दिया. इनको हम फुटेज देंगे ही नहीं. सीताराम गोयल का नाम भी उच्चारण मत करो कहीं पे, इग्नोर कर दो. और नाम में सीता है, राम है, क्या होगा, कहीं पे हिंदुत्ववादी होगा. उसका बुक कभी मत पढ़ो, कभी काउंटर नहीं करो, पढ़ो भी तो छुप छुप के पढ़ो, भूल जाओ उसके बाद.
It's a family firm today. And the two aspects of the conversion of the Congress from an open secular institution to a family firm that bear emphasizing. The first consequence is that because India's greatest political party was converted into a family firm, other political parties were given the incentive to do the same thing. So that, for example, in the state of Tamil Nadu in South India, the major political party, the DMK, was a social democratic party with a great emphasis on gender equality and social welfare measures for the poor. The now widely hailed program of midday meals, for example, in Indian schools, whereby the state provides a hot meal for every student, especially girl students.
Which is extremely unhealthy, where often lizards and insects are found, okay? Democratic inclusive agenda's best examples are 1975 and 84. यार मैक्सिमस तुम्हें नॉइज भी आती है और हेडफोन्स भी हटवाने हैं. 80s में भी तो बीजेपी वाज अप्रेसिंग दलित्स, नो? यस यस.
Thus providing an incentive to promote female education was promoted by the DMK. But the DMK now exists so that the man in power, Karunanidhi is his name, will pass on his mantle as Chief Minister of Tamil Nadu to
ओके, YouTube का AI सबटाइटल जनरेटर ने करुणानिधि का क्या सबटाइटल दिया देखो.
that the man in power, Karunanidhi is his name, will pass on his mantle as Chief Minister of Tamil Nadu to his son, who bears the curious name of Stalin. He's called M.K. Stalin, by the way. Now, this is now that's
Curious name. It is just curious. It's so funny. Stalin नाम रख लिया, अजीब बात है. एडोल्फ नाम रखता तो क्या होता?
the south of India. Move to the north, and the state of Punjab, which is dominated by a party called the Akali Dal, which, like the DMK, was a progressive reformist party of the Sikhs, which arose in the 1920s as a challenge to a corrupt and decadent clergy, which then controlled the Sikh gurdwaras and the Sikh faith. So it is a party with an honorable tradition of democratic affirmation. The Akali Dal today is controlled by a single family called the Badals. Now, that's the first consequence of the conversion of the Congress into a family firm. You know, if the most brightly lit star in the sky, succumbs to this kind of nepotistic politics, so will the lesser parties. The second consequence is that public appointments are increasingly decided on the basis of kinship, nepotism, and sycophancy. And this brings me from the decline of the Indian political party to the decline of Indian public institutions. In my lifetime, I was born in the late 1950s. So in my lifetime, I've seen a visible decline in the capability, efficiency, integrity, honesty of public hospitals, public schools, public courts, public universities, and so on and so forth, largely because modern institutions such as hospitals and courts and universities, which need to be run on impersonal principles, have become increasingly captive in the Indian system to kinship, family, caste, and religion. Now, this decline of public institutions, this corruption and corrosion of the democratic political process, in my view, is partly or even largely responsible for one rather striking feature of modern India, which is the growing gap between the rich and the poor. I myself would probably call, politically, I'm somewhere in the center, slightly to the left of center, not very much to the left of center, maybe 1.5 degrees to the left of center, if that. So I see a very important role for the market. I think it's very important. It's good that in the 1990s we opened out the economy, that we unleashed the entrepreneurial energies of the Indian innovator and businessman. But I also believe that while it's a utopian fantasy to think that any society can achieve equality of results, all modern democratic states must strive to the extent possible to achieve equality of opportunity. That they must have decent healthcare and education systems, so that even the poor have an equal chance. Now, in the kind of situation I've described, where you have the decline of public institutions, you have a surge of economic growth over the last 10 or 15 years, which has created a large middle class, but hasn't really addressed the problems of endemic and mass poverty. Now, and these contrasts are visible in any.
क्या बोल रहा है ये? एंडेमिक मास पॉवर्टी हो रहा है, मगर मिडिल क्लास का साइज बढ़ गया. हाँ, मास पॉवर्टी जिसमें है, पॉवर्टी पुअर किसको बोलते हैं? लोअर क्लास को, और एट बेस्ट लोअर मिडिल क्लास. The number of people, those people, percentage obviously of those people shrink, right? Because the middle class is increasing. How is the middle class increasing? How is the middle class increasing? The richest are not becoming poorer, right? तो मिडिल क्लास में घुस कौन रहा है? जो कि पहले पुअर थे, जिनके माँ बाप पुअर थे. तो मास पॉवर्टी को एड्रेस नहीं किया गया, इनकम इनइक्वालिटी बढ़ गया, मगर मैजिकली मिडिल क्लास का साइज भी बढ़ गया. Harsh is saying AIM said that this rich getting richer and poor getting poorer is a leftist hoax. Yes, 100%. And Harsh, please watch my videos which I have where I have addressed these topics in the Oxfam video live stream, and even some videos with Abhijit Banerjee in the thumbnail, Thomas Sowell in the thumbnail. I have addressed this countless times. So I'm very annoyed with this statement again from him, that income inequality is increasing. Income inequality is not increasing. Income inequalities will always increase, and that's not a problem. Okay, that's what I'm saying, that you can only have equal poverty. Equal prosperity kabhi bhi nahi hota hai. So imagine this is a equally poor society like Sudan or something, and then some development happens, some prosperity increases, and then more people gain prosperity faster than some other people. And उनके बीच में ये गैप बढ़ता जाता है. But that does not matter one fucking bit. What should matter to you is how are the poorest living? ओके, when the country was equally poor, तब पुअर्स का जो संख्या था, परसेंटेज था, या फिर उनका जो लिविंग कंडीशन था, उससे आज बेहतर हुआ है कि नहीं? दैट इज ऑल आई एम सेइंग। ये 1991 के बाद इनकम इनइक्वालिटी जो बढ़ गया, इसके वजह से मैं जो चंद्रगुप्त मौर्य से ज्यादा कंफर्ट में हूं, वो कौन देखेगा? वो इग्नोर कैसे कर दे? Abhay Agarwal is saying middle class is equal to mass poverty, the Ramachandra theory of economics. Okay, SRS is saying SGPC is not progressive. They were British creation, false history created here. You should listen to Puneet Sahani with Sanjay Dixit. Absolutely blown away as how British created religion of Sikhism. Yes.
The Indian city. They're even more visible if you travel out of the city into the countryside. So I think the growing gap between the rich and the poor is a major problem and challenge facing India today.
अच्छा, तो ये अगर प्रेमिस है तब तो हमको पता है कि ये कहां जाने वाला है, बट ही हैज 10 रीजंस व्हाई। आई थिंक दिस इज द सेकंड रीजन व्हाई इंडिया शुड नॉट बिकम अ सुपर पावर। इसने एक्चुअली ऑनेस्टली बोल दिया है कि अच्छा, पाकिस्तान जब तक रहेगा, हिंदू फंडामेंटलिस्ट रहेगा, तो उड़ा दो पाकिस्तान को। अच्छा, जब जब इकोनॉमिक प्रॉस्पेरिटी आएगा, इंडिया सुपर पावर बनेगा, इनकम इनइक्वालिटी बढ़ जाएगा, तो इनकम इनइक्वालिटी मत लाने दो, इंडिया सुपर पावर बनना नहीं चाहिए। इसलिए बड़ा बड़ा क्लियर फैसिनेटिंग थिंकिंग है इनका।
There's another problem which requires, I think, which the market can't solve, and that's the problem of environmental degradation. And I'm not talking climate change here. You know, I think there's a
दिस इज ऑल्सो राइट एंड रॉन्ग। एनवायरमेंटल डिग्रेडेशन सॉल्व हो रहा है जहां पे मार्केट इकोनॉमिक्स सबसे ज्यादा काम कर रहा है। सबसे ज्यादा एनवायरमेंट का बचाने का ख्याल किसके दिमाग में आता है? वो किसके दिमाग में आएगा? जिनको जिनको मतलब वुड जला के खाना बनाना पड़ेगा, वो सोचेगा अरे भाई एनवायरमेंट का कितना बुरा हो गया। तो इकोनॉमिक प्रॉस्पेरिटी इज द वे टू सेविंग द एनवायरमेंट।
very vigorous debate about India's responsibilities on the global stage as regards climate change. And, you know, you're all familiar with that debate. You know the position of, it's a debate polarized between the early polluters and the late polluters, if you will. And I don't want to get into that because I think that's not really what I want to draw your attention to. I want to draw your attention to the fact that regardless of India's position in global negotiations, you know, regardless of whether it's North America and Europe that bear the historic responsibility for the accumulation of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere and so on, Indians have to be much more proactive on the environmental front because of the abuse of the environment within India itself.
Which is exactly what Narendra Modi is doing, and this guy hates him.
Indian cities have the highest rates of air pollution in the world, which may be another reason I suffer from laryngitis apart from too much bullshitting. But that's only one side or one aspect of the way in which the surge in economic growth has damaged the Indian environment. Our rivers are dead. Historically, as in most great agrarian civilizations, the cities came up on waterways. Delhi on the Jamuna, Banaras on the on the Ganga, Guwahati on the Brahmaputra, and so on. But these rivers are dead because of industrial pollution and domestic sewage. There's been a massive depletion of groundwater aquifers because of commercial farming.
क्योंकि तुम्हारे विजनरी प्राइम मिनिस्टर,
not just a spectacular
तुम्हारे विजनरी प्राइम मिनिस्टर के डिसेंडेंट्स इन द कांग्रेस, दे हैड नो आइडिया हाउ टू सेव द रिवर बिकॉज दे हैड सच मैसिव करप्शन। और जो ये डिग्रेडेशन ऑफ इंस्टीट्यूशंस भोसले के बोलते फिर रहे हो, वो हो रहा था 1947 के पहले दिन से ही।
Such as the tiger, but also bird life, of plant diversity. We have a serious problem of related to the disposal of chemical waste. Now, so India is in many ways an environmental basket case. Regardless of our position on climate change, the processes of economic growth in India and the apathy of the state in monitoring, controlling, moderating the negative aspects of this process of economic growth has led to widespread and varied forms of environmental degradation, from very high and intolerable rates of air and water pollution to the depletion of groundwater aquifers, to the death of rivers, and to the decline of biodiversity, and so on and so forth.
इसके लिए हमको अच्छे गाड़ियां बनाने पड़ेंगे, अच्छे गाड़ियां खरीदने पड़ेंगे, अच्छे गाड़ी इनोवेट करने पड़ेंगे। ये सब नहीं हो पा रहा था बिकॉज ऑफ योर इकोनॉमिक पॉलिसीज, बिकॉज ऑफ योर लेफ्ट ऑफ सेंटर, अ डिग्री टू द लेफ्ट, वो पॉलिसीज की वजह से।
Now, when you think of how to tackle environmental degradation, clearly
पूरा देश सिर्फ एक गाड़ी चलाता था, एम्बेसडर, उसमें पॉल्यूशन नहीं होगा तो क्या होगा?
You need public action, as with how to tackle very high rates of inequality. And apart from
वेरी हाई रेट्स ऑफ इनइक्वालिटी। तो ये तो बुलशिट प्रेमिस है, उसके ऊपर अभी क्या क्या लेयर ऑफ आर्ग्यूमेंट खड़ा करेगा वो देखते हैं।
The state. A key actor here should be the media. Now, unfortunately, one of the while India is not China and Google can operate freely in India, unlike in China, while we do have an active and free press, we also have a press that is somewhat one-sided, a press that is increasingly taken up with the kind of worship of glamour and celebrity, rather than look at the entire diversity of social and environmental issues in India today. So, for example, more people will cover a beauty contest than agrarian distress. The environment. We had a very
यस एंड फेयर एनफ, बिकॉज ब्यूटी कॉन्टेस्ट में एटलीस्ट कॉम्पिटेंस का काम हो रहा है वहां पे, ठीक है। कोई कोई मॉडल बंदी सचमुच हार्डवर्क करके, डाइट वाइट कंट्रोल करके, वर्कआउट करके, ठीक ठाक चलना फिरना प्रैक्टिस करके ब्यूटी कॉन्टेस्ट में गई है। ये तुम्हारा जो फार्मर डिस्ट्रेस, एग्रेरियन डिस्ट्रेस हो रहा है, वो तुम्हारे पॉलिसीज की वजह से हो रहा है, और वो सॉल्व भी नहीं कर रहे हो। जब कोई फार्म लॉ आ रहा है, उनका भी तुम विरोध कर रहे हो, तो तुम्हारा तुम्हारा कौन एग्रेरियन प्रॉब्लम का बात सुनेगा पेपर में?
active environmental journalistic tradition. One of the great pioneers was a man called Anil Agarwal, the late Anil Agarwal, who founded the Center for Science and Environment in New Delhi, and who published in the early 1980s annual reports on the Indian environment. They were called Citizens Reports on the Indian Environment, and they documented extensively how we were using and abusing our forest, water, air, mineral resources. However, when we embraced an outward-looking economic policy in the 1990s, environmental reportage went by the wayside. Every newspaper either laid off its environmental correspondents or redesignated them stock market correspondents. So the Indian
स्टॉक मार्केट कॉरेस्पॉन्डेंट्स हो गए तभी तो फाइनेंस का अवेयरनेस आएगा, फाइनेंस का अवेयरनेस आएगा तभी हम थोड़ा बहुत हमारा इकोनॉमिक प्रॉस्पेरिटी बढ़ेगा, इकोनॉमिक प्रॉस्पेरिटी बढ़ेगा तब हम थोड़ा बहुत वी विल गिव अ फक अबाउट द एनवायरनमेंट।
media, which should be vigilant about it,
क्योंकि विदाउट इकोनॉमिक प्रॉस्पेरिटी, इन ऑर्डर टू गिव अ फक अबाउट द एनवायरनमेंट, वी हैड टू बी रिलीजियस, वी हैड टू बी डिवोट हिंदूज, जिसको तुम लोगों ने, रामचंद्र गुहा स्टार्टिंग फ्रॉम राजा राम मोहन राय, तुम लोगों ने उसको गोली मार दिया है।
these matters. We should really be focusing in a much more systematic way the attention of the citizenry of public policy on environmental degradation. I think is playing a less than optimum role. Adding to our challenges is the fragmentation of the political system. India is probably too diverse, too large, too diverse, too complicated to be run on the classical European model of a two-party democracy. I think Canada is finding it difficult, and India is much larger and much more diverse than Canada. So it's no surprise, perhaps, that in the ruling coalition in New Delhi, you may have 16 or 18 parties represented. Now, this diversity of political parties is both rational and irrational. It's a just and fair representation of the diversity, the social and cultural and political diversity of India. Its linguistic, ethnic, religious diversity. But at the
तो ये कलेक्टिविज्म का आर्ग्यूमेंट है, ठीक है। हिंदू फंडामेंटलिज्म खराब है, ओके, रिलीजियन खराब है, मगर घूम फिर के बार बार लिंग्विस्टिक डाइवर्सिटी के लिए, एथनिसिटी के लिए एक पार्टी चाहिए, ये इनका आर्ग्यूमेंट है। दिस इज व्हाट आई डिसएग्री विद अभिजीत चावड़ा आल्सो ऑन। ही ऑलवेज सेज दैट there are so many different religious ethnicities and racial ethnicities, why shouldn't there be a voice for them as well in the American political system? अरे भोसरी के इसीलिए उसका भी उसका $23 ट्रिलियन इकोनॉमी है, इसलिए हमारा नहीं हो रहा है, इसीलिए क्योंकि हमारे कास्ट लाइंस में इतने पार्टीज है, लिंग्विस्टिक लाइंस में इतने पार्टीज है, एथनिक लाइंस में इतने पार्टीज है। आई डोंट हैव अ प्रॉब्लम विद 500 पार्टीज, आई हैव अ प्रॉब्लम विद पार्टीज बीइंग फॉर्म्ड ऑन दोज लाइंस। दोज लाइंस में करे को तब तो एक हिंदू पार्टी भी चाहिए, एक एकम सनातन भारत भी चाहिए। बट व्हाट आई वुड रादर हैव इज 50 parties competing on who can do the best economic prosperity while keeping great balances with the environment, and while making sure that no one starves to death because of some evil version of capitalism. But ये टू पार्टी सिस्टम का सोल्यूशन जो अपोजिंग साइड से रामचंद्र गुहा और अभिजीत चावड़ा देते हैं कि हाँ इतने सारे एथनिसिटीज है तो सबको बना लो एक पार्टी, दैट इज एब्सोल्युटली स्टूपिड। नीरज सिंह डाइवर्सिटी अब प्रॉब्लम हो गया, अमेरिका में तो डाइवर्सिटी चाहिए। इकोनॉमिक प्रॉस्पेरिटी एंड इकोलॉजिकल सेंसिटिविटी डजंट हैव टू बी म्यूचुअली एक्सक्लूसिव। यस,
At the same time, you can't have good long-term robust policies in an 18-party government. And in India particularly, you can't have honest governance either. when a new coalition comes to power after a general election in India, for the last 20 years, we've had about 6 or 7 general elections. And the last time a single party achieved a majority was in 1984. So we've had 1989, 1991, 96, 98, 99, 2004, 2009. That's 7 general elections. Each time, typically, and you Canadians would be familiar with one side of the story, not the other side of the story, which I'm going to come to. You find that you need 272 seats to have a majority in parliament. So one major party, say the Congress party, has about 160 seats. So it needs about 100. And how does it get its 100? It goes shopping for allies. And usually, if you add 6 and 8 and 10 and 12 seats, you end up with a 15-party coalition, and you cross that magic number of 272. Now, that's a procedure which many democracies seats, you end up with a 15-party coalition, and you cross that magic number of 272.
अरे गलती से मैंने क्या दबा दिया? 1 मिनट रुको रुको, गलत शॉर्टकट की दबा दिया. Shit.
A majority in parliament. So one major party, say the Congress party, has about 160 seats. So it needs about 100. And how does it get its 100? It goes shopping for allies. And usually, if you add 6 and 8 and 10 and 12 seats, you end up with a 15-party coalition, and you cross that magic number of 272. Now, that's a procedure which many democracies are familiar with. In Europe, too, for example. In Germany, you always have a problem where the Social Democrats or the Christian Democrats need to cozy up to the Free Democrats or the Greens to form a ruling coalition. But where India is special is in terms of the price of joining a coalition. Now, in Germany, for example, since I know a little bit about Germany, you will probably find that the Greens, if they want to join a coalition, will say, give us the environment ministry. The Free Democrats, because they think that foreign policy is important or fashionable or prestigious, will say, give us the foreign ministry. In India, the party that is being wooed by the larger party will say, give us the ministry in which we can make the most money quickly. So multi-party coalitions in India have led not just to political instability, to the lack of systematic policies being formulated to tackle energy or health or education or the environment, have also led to the intensification of corruption. Now, so we have a complicated and not entirely stable polity. We also have parts of India that are not entirely comfortable with being, Indian. Apart from the Maoist insurgency I mentioned, there are at least 3 states of the Indian Union: the state of Kashmir, which is disputed with India and Pakistan, and the states of Manipur and Nagaland in the northeast, where there are major insurgencies, where groups like with the Maoists, groups of committed young men, and less often.
Yes, why? Because his visionary Prime Minister Jawaharlal Nehru allowed that state to be overrun by missionaries who taught them that you are not Hindu, and therefore you're definitely not Indian. And whereas at the same time, China and other Maoist governments and then communist governments kept funding their movements. The longest running insurgency in the country is not the Maoist insurgencies. It's a group called Nagalims for Christ. It's a Christian socialist party. They are calling for a different state for so long. और ये हिंदुत्ववादी फैसिस्ट गवर्नमेंट आने के बाद आफ्सपा हट गया यहाँ से, मगर ये रामचंद्र गुहा को पसंद नहीं है.
Committed young women are fighting an armed struggle for independent homelands, for independent nations. So you have disturbances in 3 states in the borders. You also have a very unstable neighborhood. And I think certainly much more unstable than residents of this great country. I mean, you have the peaceful, the cold, admittedly, but the cold and the peaceful Arctic to the north of you. You have this big behemoth to the south of you. You have the sea on 2 sides. Who do we have? We have on our west Pakistan, somewhere between an Islamic theocracy and a failed state. Move up towards the north, you have China, with whom we fought a bloody war in 1962, and we have border.
So how is our freedom of speech or freedom of press going to be exactly the same as USA or Canada or Europe? Okay, we have 3 insurgent states. We have enemies on all sides, and we are a bigger, way bigger population than any European country or even USA or Canada. But our policies are going to be exactly the same as those countries. How is that going to work?
Issues that are unresolved. Come far south, and you have Sri Lanka, which has had a brutal civil war, which has claimed 100,000 people. And despite the apparent military success of the current regime, it's a civil war that hasn't really addressed the underlying problems that caused the conflict in the first place. Move east, you have Bangladesh, which has a very fragile democracy, move northeast. You have Nepal, where you had a Maoist insurgency, which hasn't really found a soft landing. Where the democratic process is still quite fragile and unresolved. Now, what I've done so far is to itemize, and I'll recapitulate these points. Itemize what not the multitude of sins, but the multitude of problems that those aggregate statistics about India's apparent economic and political success conceal.
Apparent. This is why commies and Marxists are so annoying. India's economic success in 2010, which is that usual growth rate of 8% about, he's calling that apparent. As if it's like he's giving the vibe that it's not real economic prosperity, it's just what you guys in Canada have heard. It's not really that, bro. We have so many problems. Problem hai isliye 8% economic growth ko ignore kar do. মনিকা গাঙ্গুলি সিং, দাদা পূর্ববঙ্গকে পুনরায় ভারতে আনার ব্যাপারে আপনার কি মত? একদমই no fucking way. This Bengali woman is asking that what do you think of Bangladesh getting reinstated in India? And I'm saying that absolutely no, because that country is filled with assholes.
And let me repeat these 10 points. The 10 reasons India will not be a superpower.
Now, अच्छा 40 minutes का premise set हुआ. अब देखते हैं क्या बोलते हैं. क्यों हमको गरीब रहना चाहिए और गरीब.
First, the challenge of left-wing political extremism, the Maoist insurgency in the heart of India. Second, the still very visible tendency towards fundamentalist assertion in all India's faith communities, and particularly in India's majority Hindu faith community. Third,
ये sentence तो एक बार सुनना है. Especially in the Hindu majority community. सबके fundamentalists है, but the Hindus are just too much.
Communities, and particularly its fundamentalist assertion in all India's faith communities, and particularly in India's majority Hindu faith community.
Look at this fucking liar. Particularly in the Hindu faith community. इसलिए ये तो इंडिया का इकोनॉमिक ग्रोथ रेट को apparent बोलेगा तो इसीलिए.
Third, the decline of the political center, particularly the conversion of political parties into family firms. Fourth, the corruption and corrosion of public institutions. Fifth, the growing gap between the rich and the poor. Sixth, the rapid pace of environmental degradation. Seventh, the apathy of the media. Eighth, the political fragmentation and the policy incoherence it gives birth to. Ninth, the disturbances in the northeast and the northwest, in Kashmir, Manipur, and Nagaland. And finally, a very unstable neighborhood. Now, there are 10 reasons India, I believe, will not be a superpower. But
अच्छा. ये 10 कारण के वजह से इंडिया सुपर पावर नहीं बन पाएगा. ये तो एक प्रेडिक्शन है जो कि ऑलमोस्ट अभी ऑलरेडी ध्वस्त हो चुका है. Now I think we will learn why India must not become a superpower. Okay, now the fun begins.
This analytical listing of problems that the country faces, I'd like to add a citizen's desire that India should not even aspire to be a superpower. In my view, international relations is not a 100-meter race, where someone must come first and someone must come last. In my view, if you look at what the 20th century, or indeed the last 200 years have taught you, is that there are no permanent winners and losers in history. The British had to cope with decline. The Soviet Union coped very badly with decline. We really don't know how the Americans will cope with decline. And maybe we Indians should never be in that position in the first place. By arguing thus, I am not promoting either an isolationism or some kind of Gandhian pacifism. I believe that India has to be vigilant in protecting its borders. It has to have a capable and efficient and well-funded army. It has to have a much better security and intelligence gathering system than it has at present to tackle particular threats of right-wing and left-wing extremism and terrorism. So I'm not...
अरे बाप रे. Right wing or left wing extremism के लिए army चाहिए, neighbors के लिए नहीं चाहिए. But even other than that, all the problems he mentioned for the 40 minutes of his first 40 minutes of his speech, they are specifically because we are not a superpower. What kind of an intellectual or historian is this? If we were a superpower, these problems would not be there.
Than it has at present to tackle particular threats of right-wing and left-wing extremism and terrorism. So I'm not a Gandhian pacifist, nor am I an isolationist. I think there are things India could teach the world, which are different from what some of my fellow compatriots think India should be teaching the world. I mean, I think the desire for superpowerdom comes from a kind of male anxiety. It's expressed most visibly in my country by three kinds of men. businessmen, male editors of newspapers, and male politicians in New Delhi, who would like to be treated, the male editors would like to be treated the way the editor of the New York Times is, or maybe 10 years later, the editor of the People's Daily of Beijing will be, the businessman, and so on. Now, I think it comes from a kind of status anxiety. I think what India, and they would like to strut around, the World Economic Forum in Davos, other corridors of global power and influence making in the way in which Americans have become accustomed to, in which the Chinese apparently are now becoming accustomed to, and the ways in which the British and the Russians and the French used to strut around in the past. Now, I think what India can teach the world, I mean, I think really I'm saying two or three things. The first thing I'm saying is,
इंडिया सुपर पावर नहीं होना चाहिए, मगर इंडिया सुपर पावर नहीं होना चाहिए ये बोलने के लिए सुपर पावर देश में ही क्यों जाना पड़ता है भोसरी के, कि क्यों ये बांग्लादेश के गांव में जाके बोलो, बंगाल के गांव में जाके यहाँ टॉक दो, क्यों नहीं दे रहे हो?
that we have
Yeah, Nina is saying wanting to be a superpower is patriarchy now. क्या बोला ये मेल एंजाइटी है, मेल फैंटेसी है बीइंग अ सुपर पावर. अगर है तो अच्छा है, तब चलो हम क्रेडिट ले लेते हैं.
serious fault lines and divisions within Indian society.
So he's basically invisibilizing all the women who also want these things. Can you see that? This is the problem with leftists. This is the same when they talk about Muslims, that Muslims are victims, Muslims are oppressed, but they ignore Muslims who are successful, Muslims who have never faced any bad behavior from Hindus, Muslims today who are proud to be Indians, etc. Same case with blacks in America. Black conservatives को ये invisibilize करते हैं कि अच्छा black का ये problem है, black का वो problem है. Black conservative बोल रहे हैं अरे नहीं तुम सब गलत बोल रहे हो, कहाँ problem है? In the same way, now he's playing to the feminist crowd in Canada. Obviously, he knows there are all feminists in front of him, and he is saying it's a male fantasy, it's a male anxiety that's leading businessmen and media men and male politicians to have these superpower fantasies, and women don't have these stupid crazy fantasies because women are so much better. But the women who want these things then are obviously stupid subservient women who just listen to their husbands and all. That's his idea of women. Jai Hind dosto is saying fourth type of men are colonized castes like Guha. Anushka Tyagi is saying Guha thinks our motherland will never be a superpower because of male anxiety. Yes.
And we really need to refocus our attention on these. Second thing I'm saying is that what is unique about India is its political experiment. The fact that we are so large and so diverse, yet a single nation. The fact that against the odds,
अरे हर्ष जा, थोड़ा रुक जा और थोड़ा देर बाकी है, 1.25 में अभी खत्म हो जाएगा.
Despite poverty and illiteracy, we somehow constructed an electoral system based on individuals choosing the right to elect their own leaders. I think when Europe, which is finding great difficulty in dealing with its Muslim minority, they can possibly turn to how India has dealt not too badly with its Muslim minority. When the Americans are paranoid about the growing Spanish speakers in their homeland, for example, they should consider how India has dealt wonderfully with multilingualism. I mean, and
India is not a Hindu country. India ऐसे fault line था बहुत. We have not done a great job of handling our minorities, but now he's saying we have done a great job of handling our minorities.
Forget America. In 1956, and I'll end with this example. In 1956, the Parliament of Ceylon, as Sri Lanka was then known, passed a Sinhala-only language policy. It said from now on the European model, where a single nation must have a single language to bind the citizens in one kind of unified national purpose, Sinhala will be the only language of government administration and university education. And the Tamils of the north protested. They said, this policy will, we have an ancient and beautiful language and we will be discriminated against. And at that stage, in 1956, the same year, India reorganized the map of India on linguistic grounds. So we did what Canada did, except that you have two languages. We have 16 or 18. And it happened in the same year. And in that Sri Lanka imposed one language as the official national language, and India allowed a diversity of languages to flourish. And there was a
and he is now defending the idea that Indian states were divided on linguistic lines. Fuck. He does not want Hindu fundamentalism to take root, but he has no problem with linguistic fundamentalism to take root. Of linguistic fundamentalism taking root. Linguistic lines पे state divide कर दोगे तो क्या होगा?
Sinhala MP called Colvin de Silva, who said in the parliament, he told the government, which was promoting a Sinhala only policy, he said, I warn you, one language, two nations, two languages, one nation. Now in India, we had Hindi zealots. There was the slogan of the old right-wing party, the Jan Sangh, Hindi, Hindu, Hindustan. He who is a Hindu, he who speaks Hindi, only he is a proper Indian. We would have had one language, 17 nations.
Okay, we have read that paper by Venkat Dhulipala. Okay, Muslim leaders of Congress who are opposed to Muslim League, they are on record saying that we are propagating Hindi specifically as part of Congress to show Hindu-Muslim friendship. When Doordarshan started doing the programs, they said that, see, this is one language, Hindi. All other languages are regional. Other languages, otherization literally हुआ था कांग्रेस के हाथों हिंदी को प्रमोट करने के चक्कर में, और उस चक्कर में शुद्ध हिंदी भी घटिया हो गया और उर्दू फील्ड हिंदी हो गया, जिसमें अभी हम सिर्फ का उच्चारण कैसे करें वो डिसाइड करते हैं. तो जो चीज पूरा का पूरा शुरू से कांग्रेस ने किया था, उसका दोष अब जनसंघ को दिया जा रहा है.
I think we're an extraordinary political experiment. It's an experiment that hasn't completely succeeded. It's still finding its way. There are divisions and fissures within. But I think what we, if at all, we have a lesson to the world, it's not about domination. It's about coexistence. Thank you very much.
हो गया. अरे कहाँ 10 कारण दिया why India should not become a superpower.
Ram, thank you very much. That was wonderful. Now we have some time for questions if you're willing.
Q&A में क्या होता
See
है?
people standing up. That may work better for you. So you choose.
Thank you. My name is Safwat Ayub from
ये बहुत ही लो IQ लो इंटेलेक्ट स्पीच है भाई. कहाँ 10 रीजन दिया why India should not become a superpower.
the South North Forum. Mr. Guha, you gave us, I must say, a very rich presentation of aspects we were not aware of.
आहा, एक मुस्लिम भाईजान को लगा है कि रामचंद्र गुहा ने बड़ा बढ़िया बातें बोले हैं.
Why? Because we see, like your press, the glamorous side of India. A few years ago, and Ambassador Malone was in India, I think. At that time, Minister Kanwar of Science and Technology was here in Canada. And I can tell you that his agenda was full. Everybody wanted to see him. Everybody wanted to sign agreements with advanced India. I was a kid in Egypt when Jawaharlal Nehru and Nasser formed together the non-alignment movement. And the Egyptians were looking always towards India. How come India has succeeded in producing a car 100%? How India could do all this? The disadvantages you mentioned, having some prime ministers wanting their children to be succeed them. Well, we have in the southern borders some examples of this sometime, and we've seen it in many other places. I don't know if this has been a handicap for India. What I wanted to say is that in Canada, for instance, I have a brother who went recently to recruit 500 engineers in your country to work for a Canadian firm. It's 5 times cheaper and much better in quality. So this is how we see India here.
No, I think it's, as I said, what I was trying to provide was a reality check. The aspects of India's economic growth that are important. The engineers you talk about are what I call the benign side of globalization. The dispossession
That's not the benign side of globalization. That's the benign side of capitalism.
of tribal people to greedily extract mineral resources is not a happy thing.
That would not happen if we were a superpower.
And I think India is large and diverse and complicated, and different parts are moving at a different momentum.
It's complicated because you just defended dividing the country on linguistic lines.
And what I was very, I'm a patriot. I mean, I like my country.
हाँ, अब बोलना पड़ रहा है भाई, हम तो पेट्रियट है. जैसा दीपक को कभी बोलना पड़ता है.
To do well, to be just, to lift his people out of poverty. I am also a Democrat. I abhor Maoist revolutionaries, as I abhor right-wing Hindu extremists. But I'm not, I'm not one-eyed. I'm not blind, and I'm not a jingoist trumpeter. And I'm not a minister. I'm an independent intellectual.
Well, you could be on that.
So I have to say what I see, and I see these conflicts and contradictions around me.
And you are a fucking blind person.
Which are also as much the Indian story as the 500 engineers.
Thank you.
My name is Anu Bose, and
Apparent economic rise. Okay, a lot of comments have come. I need to check this out. What was this guy famous for again? Yeah, he's famous for writing history books. दादा लेफ्टिस्ट में IQ ढूंढना is like सहारा में समुद्र ढूंढना. अर्णब चक्रवर्ती is saying एक reason ही दिया basically कि सुपर पावर्स होने ही नहीं चाहिए. Yes. Anushka is saying what a terrible way to end a speech. Study room is saying रात 3 बजे. Yes. Guha said that white people should not worry about growing Muslim population because India has Muslim population, but he didn't tell the Muslim who were behind the partition of India and massacres happened. Trudeau is also a dynast. His father was PM of Canada before, yes. And same with Bush family, Kennedy, yes. तो Trudeau का बाप Castro है ना. He was just peddling the usual myth of harmonious existence. Yes, massacres were done by Muslims. All the illegal things done in India dominated by Muslims, and such a hypocrite. Yes, and जहाँ पे हिंदू majority खत्म होता है वहीं से insurgency शुरू होता है magically.
My roots are in Calcutta, which I won't say Kolkata, I will say Calcutta.
I won't say Kolkata, I will say Calcutta because British ने नाम दिया था तब तो ठीक ही होगा.
I have a question for you. There is another fissure which I wish you had addressed, which is the question of the Dalits of India. I think as long as we have the question of untouchability, in practice, if not in law, then it's going to hold India back very, very much.
क्या बोल रहा है 2010 में untouchability.
Untouchability, in practice, if not in law, then it's going to hold India back very, very much.
Yeah, I think, look, I mean, I listed 10, there could be 20 or 25 issues. I had to be picky. But I think the tribal people are much worse off than Dalits. I would put it this way, that the Dalits, for example, have political representation. I mean, a Dalit woman is the chief minister of India's largest state. Dalits are visible, very visible in the intellectual community, in government, not yet in entrepreneurship. But the untouchables, I could have added gender to my list, for example. But I think
Untouchables बोल रहा है खुद बोल रहा है untouchables.
those are issues which, over a period of time,
Yes, Anushka Tyagi. Anushka Tyagi is saying he keeps putting Naxalite revolutionaries and religious extremists in the same basket. That's the addiction to false equivalency. हाँ, यहाँ भी दोष है, यहाँ भी दोष है. Equate करना है. अगर एक साइड को specifically एक साइड को अगर दोष दो, तब तो उनका intellectual बनते फिरना ही बंद हो जाएगा.
India will resolve. I think the Dalits in 60 years, we have made some progress compared to the past 6,000 years of oppression of Dalits. So I would not put it, I mean, I'm cognizant of it and I'm aware of it, but I don't think it's as serious and fundamental a challenge. I think the procedures and processes of Indian democracy can take account of it, but they can't really take account of the tribal question or the question of the borderlands, the Nagas, the Manipuris in the same.
Thank you.
My name is Veena Ravichandran. I work with IDRC's Innovation Technology and Society program, and I work predominantly in the South Asian region. And first of all, what a brilliant tapestry of the Indian scenario. And
this is a brilliant tapestry of Indian scenario.
And I'm delighted at the way you brought out the fault lines and the fissures underneath. I have very brief two questions about the religious right-wing fundamentalism. You alluded to within a particular region. You said that there are rifts within a community, a religious community, of extreme right-wing and then moderate. And I wonder where that's coming from. Is it coming from the rich-poor gap, or is it education? What is the trigger for that kind of a split within a religion?
अच्छा क्वेश्चन किया है. देखते हैं क्या उत्तर होगा. एक तो खुद ने ऑप्शन दे दिया. अच्छा वो गरीब है इसलिए शायद मदरचोद है. अब देखते हैं रामचंद्र गुहा का क्या उत्तर है.
Question. I'll finish my second. Do you see at all a visible coming forth of social entrepreneurship? Today, we have at least 5 leading business schools, the IITs, which are offering courses in social entrepreneurship. And that means there is an appetite, there are young people, and so much, visible uprising of young people, youngsters or educated who consciously stay back and they want to do, and this is seen in the number of non-government organizations purely.
हाँ वहाँ स्टे बैक क्यों हो रहा है? क्योंकि 8% जीडीपी ग्रोथ रेट था 2010 में भी, जो इनको अपेरेंट लग रहा था, जो कि नहीं होना चाहिए क्योंकि इनकम इनइक्वालिटी बढ़ रहा है. तो चूतिए उसके वजह से ही लोग नहीं जा रहे हैं उतना इंडिया से बाहर आज के दिन में.
By passion to make a difference. Is there any hope at all? Or any...
So there is. I mean, there's both very important questions that would, probably would require a much more extended discussion. I think the first question I'll answer very, very briefly. I think you have a domestic situation or a regional situation where you have the rise of Islamic fundamentalism in the region, in Afghanistan, in Pakistan, and Bangladesh, which is a provocation for Hindu fundamentalism. But there's also a global situation. I mean, there's the conflict in the Middle East, which is aggressive Zionism versus equally aggressive Islamism. I mean, you have the kind of evangelical fervor of a George Bush. So you have a kind of a global situation that feeds it. The other question, I think, other issue was social entrepreneurship. If I was to look at India, if I was to compare.
Wow, he actually gave a right answer. Interesting. चलो पूरा ये लाइव स्ट्रीम में एक चीज इसका करेक्ट आंसर. It was worth it so far. Okay, Maximus is saying brief question. See how his response had no real answer to anything, just words trying to show his high opinion and educatedness. Yes.
India in 1950 with India in 2010. I would conceptually compare it like this. I would say for a democracy, and a welfare state to function at somewhere near optimum capacity, you need three sectors to pull your weight. You need the state, you need the private entrepreneurs, and you need civil society. In the 50s and 60s, we had an efficient, capable, focused state. We had no NGO movement, and we had timid and insecure entrepreneurs. Today, we have a
टिमिड और इनसिक्योर एंटरप्रेन्योर्स क्यों थे? क्या मिस्ट्री है इसके पीछे? ऐसे ही टिमिड थे, ऐसे ही इनसिक्योर थे। टाटा टिमिड और इनसिक्योर थे, बजाज टिमिड और इनसिक्योर थे, और बाकी कोई टाटा और बजाज क्यों नहीं बन पा रहा था?
thriving civil society movement. We have social entrepreneurs, but we also have, on the other hand, some industrialists who are just incredibly greedy and uncaring about society as a whole.
अनकेयरिंग भोसरी के वो नौकरी दे रहा है तो वो और क्या 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 क्यों केयर क्यों करेगा?
But we have really a malfunctioning state. So I mean, you need all three sectors. I mean, whether it be Sweden or Canada or anywhere else, you need civil.
हाँ चुतिया, देखो बार बार सुपर पावर का एग्जांपल देता है, फिर बोलता है कि हमको सुपर पावर नहीं बनना है, हमको इनकम इनइक्वालिटी नहीं बढ़वाना है। तो कनाडा और स्वीडन में क्यों नहीं है ये सब प्रॉब्लम? स्वीडन गरीब देश है, इक्वली पुअर है सब।
Society, state, and private sector. I mean, you need the entrepreneurial energy of the private sector. You need the mobilizing power and the collective solidarity of civil society organizations, and you need impartial, capably functioning state. And I think our public institutions are in a state of crisis, and that's what we really need to address.
हाँ, कलेक्टिव सिविल सोसाइटी तो था। संजीव सन्याल इसको बिग बिंदी क्लास, रेड बिंदी क्लास बोलते हैं। ये सारे लोग जो सोशल वर्कर्स होते हैं और कास्ट लाइंस पे और डिवाइड करते जाते हैं, जिनका डिस्कोर्स, जिनका स्टैटिस्टिक्स और डेटा उठा के यूपी और बिहार में कास्टिज्म बेस्ड पॉलिटिक्स का राज होता है, वो सब तो इन लोगों की वजह से ही होता है जो तुमको चाहिए।
Hi, I'm Anil. I'm here at the IDRC. So your point about the extraordinariness of the Indian political experiment is quite right, I think, especially with the different fault lines that exist there. And the last part of your talk about the lessons that other countries can learn from India is something that I think about a lot, because it seems like a lot of the problems that other countries have, there's some sort of analog that exists in India, whether it's language or insurgency or separatist movements or whatever. But then again, and this question is very general, just to provoke some thought. I'm wondering, however, if India is just too extraordinary to actually provide true lessons to other countries, because it doesn't seem like other countries can really do what India has done.
Well, to a limited extent. I think, there's an example I like to give, and David has heard this before, so he'll crave my indulgence. And it's to do with, for example, the handling of ethnic diversity. 4 years ago, when the French were beating their head about the headscarf, I gave a talk in a university in Kerala, in a Muslim majority district in Kerala. I mean, it's the district of Malappuram, previously known as Calicut, which is one of the few Muslim majority districts in India outside the Kashmir Valley. And it was a talk to an audience like this in a university. And at least 40% of the audience were young girls in headscarves. And the headscarf was liberating. It allowed them to come to university and acquire a university education. Now, there's a clear difference between a headscarf and a veil, and a full veil. Now, the Indians live with accommodation. I mean, we don't mind. I mean, a Sikh wears a turban, a Hindu peasant wears a turban.
Indians live with accommodation. Hindus don't live with accommodation. Hindu fundamentalism, Hindu extremism 30 बार 40 बार बोल दिया. अब बोल रहा है कि Indians live with acceptance, bro.
A Hindu woman covers her head with a scarf. I mean, the French would be saying, "What the hell are you doing?" I mean, my wife, when sometimes she covers, they might be. So I think there are some things like this, or linguistic diversity.
हाँ, ये भी गलत बोल रहा है। वो घूंघट को बोल रहा है कि फ्रेंच को ये भी लगता है, French are so evil that they hate Muslims for headscarves. They would also reject Hindu headscarves. But no, people in church also wear veils. French को उससे problem है क्या?
I think is another lesson that the Sri Lankans could have learned from us. They still could. I mean, talk about Sri Lanka. The Sri Lankan crisis has two elements. First, the imposition of sin around the Tamils. Second, the fact that in 1972, Buddhism was made the official state religion.
और हिस्टोरिकल जो injustice दलित के साथ हुआ था, जिजिया टैक्स कौन पे कर रहा था?
Fortunately, I mean, the LTT, the Tamil Tigers, were a brutal fascist organization. And I'm glad they finished. But at the same time, the kind of triumphalism of the Sinhala elite today is not going to restore peace and trust in the northern parts of Sri Lanka. That will only come by a gesture such as giving Tamil equal rights, or saying there is no equation of fate with state. Sri Lanka is not a Buddhist nation. It is for everyone. So I think there are things about the Indian experiment. I mean, our scale is staggering. I agree. I mean, our scale is staggering. And I often say that it's probably the Soviet Union and the USA, which are national experiments comparable in scale. So in that sense, yes. But I think there's certain limited lessons. But at the same time, we could learn lessons from other countries. I think that the reciprocity is important. I mean, we could learn how to deconvert political parties into open secular institutions. to limit the influence of kin and nepotism on, in the way in which other institutions function. So I think.
But we should not learn free market economics from other countries and prosperity from other countries, or how to handle environment better from other countries.
I think the borrowing can be both ways.
Thanks, Ram. I think we'll take, mindful of your voice amongst other factors, we'll just take the two people who are still standing, and then we'll draw it to close. You all know there's some coffee and tea outside, some cookies, so I hope we can all get together over those. I'm sure Ram will stay for a few minutes to speak to people.
Thank you. My name is Christina Marcotte. I actually work in Aerospace and Industry Canada and here out of personal interest, having been a student of India in my undergraduate degree. I heard India referred to as more of a status quo power rather than a superpower. I was wondering, though, in your opinion, if India may end up a superpower in spite of itself. With the continued economic growth, I know the Indian Army is now looking at acquiring some new capabilities, that given the right circumstances, India may decide to intervene in something because they feel they have to, which is what I mean by sort of maybe they don't consciously decide to be a superpower, but may end up in that role anyway.
Well, it's hard to say. I mean, you can't say what the circumstances would be. In 1987, we intervened in Sri Lanka and got a bloody nose. I mean, the Indian Army, I think it was a mistake. Status quo power would be about it.
71 ignore kar diya.
The phrase I prefer to either status quo power or superpower is not my coinage. It's the coinage of my colleague Sunil Khilnani. And he calls India a bridging power. India is, because of its history, its culture, its diversity, it's uniquely placed to bridge the West and the East, Asia and Europe, democracy and totalitarianism, if you wish. I think that's how I would like to see it. Not status quo is too negative. Superpower is too triumphalist. If you know what I mean. I think bridging power is kind of where I would see it.
And my name is Purvi. I'm an intern here at IDRC. You mentioned the crisis of governance and the decline of public institutions in India. One phenomenon that I see is stemming from that is the extreme activism of Indian courts. There seems to be other institutions in India that are completely failing, not being able to provide goods and services, and the courts have taken on this role for themselves where they're
Because they are not supposed to provide goods and services. The goods and services are supposed to provide by the greedy capitalists. जो कि provide sell करने के बाद उनका और कोई responsibility नहीं रहता है.
stepping in to fill that vacuum. Mostly the executive, sometimes the legislature as well. It could be a good thing in that the job gets done. Somebody's doing it. It could be a bad thing in that it raises lots of questions of legitimacy. It's not a democratic institution, especially in India. The judiciary is not a democratic institution at all. I just want to get your thoughts on whether that should be looked at as a good thing or a bad thing.
I think you're right. I mean, let me put it this way: that the period of activism or hyper-activism of the Indian courts has passed its peak. It was 10 or 15 years ago, and now I think the courts are less willing.
Yeah. And now we are back there.
On balance, I have ambivalent feelings about activism because it's going into areas where sometimes they don't have the competence. And I think one of the problems of the Indian court, so far, fortunately, the higher levels of the Indian judiciary are relatively free from corruption. There are a few corrupt judges, but the proportion of corrupt judges.
नेपोटिज्म एक घंटे से नेपोटिज्म बोल रहा था. जुडिशियरी में नेपोटिज्म नहीं है.
Is much smaller than the proportion of corrupt politicians or indeed corrupt civil servants or possibly even corrupt newspaper editors. I could even say that. If you have a large a definition of corruption which is broad. So I think that's a good part of the. But where we and David knows this subject probably better than me. I think what we don't have is a sufficiently educated judiciary. We live in a very complex world.
क्यों है? क्योंकि हमारा नेपोटिस्टिक जुडिशियरी है.
So that how to deal with the genetic modification of crops, how to deal with new kinds of surveillance systems, the technology of those. The Indian judiciary is born omniscient. You join the judiciary at 40, and who knows? I mean, they think they know everything. So they what they need is regular refresher courses. The judges don't think. The lordships don't think that they can actually go and be educated. So,
हाँ, NJSC तो नहीं accept किया था, तुम लोगों ने support किया था.
And also because there's now increasing political interference in the recruitment of judges, the quality of the Indian judiciary, I think, is also declining. I mean, we had outstanding judges, and more than the activism, I would be worried about the quality and the sheer intellectual power of the Indian judiciary, which I think is now not what it used to be.
Ram, thank you. On that point, I once saw a wonderful site in Bhutan.
ये टॉर्चर खत्म हुआ. थोड़ा कमेंट देख लेते हैं, उसके बाद हम सोने जाएंगे. रिलीजन पे कभी कभी सही आंसर दे देते हैं. यस. नो एनजीओस लोल. हेडस्कार्फ्स ने लिबरेट कर दिया. ही इज ड्रिंकिंग वे टू मच लोल. यस. Wow, headscarves are liberating. He didn't tell that hijab was never part of Indian Muslim attire. Yeah, I never saw that hijab when I was a kid. Yes, absolutely. But I do see them now. Yeah, even in Kolkata, that's the thing. hijab is latest Islamic imposition on Muslim women. Yes. Quality of intellectuals was outstanding. Yes. Intellectuals में भी nepotism नहीं है. Judiciary में भी nepotism नहीं है. Watch him sidestep the tyranny of the unelected. Yes. ज़्यादा problem नहीं है. थोड़ा सिखाना चाहिए. उसके बाद हो जाएगा. Okay then, thanks for joining the live stream guys. It was a good day. ब्रह्म पुराण का thumbnail हटाना पड़ेगा, नाम चेंज करना पड़ेगा. बहुत ही खराब हुआ. जो लोग ब्रह्म पुराण सुनने आए थे. तो someday soon, maybe tomorrow or day after tomorrow. I'm missing Brahma Puran. Good night then guys. Listen to my outro music as well. Then go to sleep. Good night.
श्रवरूढं महाभीमं गुणाद्रष्टाङ्गरप्रदम् अस्य युक्तं त्रिनेत्रं च कपालकर्णिकाकरान् मुक्तकेशीं ललज्जयः पिबन्तीं रुधिरं चतुर्बाहु समायुक्तं वराभयकरं स्मरेत् चतुर्बाहु समायुक्तं वराभयकरं स्मरेत् काली काली महाकाली कालिके पापहारिणी धर्मर्थ मोक्षदे देवी नारायणी नमोस्तुते धर्मर्थ मोक्षदे देवी नारायणी नमोस्तुते काली काली